Is this thing on?
Are you ready, Matt?
You're listening to Box Office Bingers
with Matt Diaz and Ernesto Santos.
Good evening, folks. We have a wonderful evening's entertainment lined up for you.
We know each other. He's a friend from work.
Box Office Bingers.
And the only way that I know how to do it is to find you a bloody good dump.
He's my friend. I don't have friends. I got family.
I can do this all day.
You know, if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything.
Matthew, we are back for another episode of Box Office Bingers. I am excited to talk about today's movie. I think, I had never been introduced to this director. Actually, excuse me, I've seen one of their movies, but I haven't seen the one that he's very well known for. So let's kick it off.
Wait, really? You never seen Ex Monica?
Okay, well,
Ex
Machina.
Machina, yeah, that one too. You ever seen that one?
No, that's what I'm talking about. I haven't seen that one.
Oh, I did not know that.
I was trying to tee it up for you. I mean, I didn't. It was rough to start, but I'm just gonna roll with it. I don't care.
You threw me off guard because I didn't know you realized. I did not know that you did not see that movie.
I guess I should have preempted you with that information before I just went rogue and just dropped that on you.
It threw me off guard because I didn't know. But
you got to clue in the people who are just listening.
Yes, I know. In suspense, they are.
I know. They're like, what movie is it? Even though they know from clicking the episode.
Say it already. God. Anyway, we are reviewing Civil War, what some people are touting as the most controversial movie of the year, which I think that would be a conversation we're going to be having a little bit later on in the show. It will be starring Kristen Dunst, Wagner Moura, Kaylee Spaney, Stephen McKinley Henderson, and Nick Offerman. Very briefly, Nick Offerman, but he's in the movie, as well as very briefly Jesse Plemons, which is a fun story about Jesse Plemons' involvement in this movie that we'll get into also later in this episode. Written and directed by Alex Garland, who did Ex Monica. Thank you. Annihilation, Men, and the creator of the 2020 miniseries Devs. He wrote and directed all of those, as well as the writer behind 28 Days Later, Sunshine, and 2012's Dread. He was actually a writer before he became a writer-director, and now, interestingly enough, in a March 2024 interview with The Guardian, Garland stated that after Civil War, he intends to step back from directing and focus only on writing, a decision he made 2 years ago during the filming of Civil War. Ooh. So another thing that we'll probably be talking about a little bit later into the show.
We're also going to talk about the article he sat down for like an hour with the Vulture, and he talks about that and plus some other things he's working on. It's going to be a good time. There's besides the conversation within the movie, there's a lot to pick apart there. So I'm excited to dive into that with you later.
Yeah, it's everything about this movie is as interesting as everything behind the scenes with this movie. Mm-hmm. And this is a movie that I was very much excited for. I was kind of really enthralled by the trailer of it all and just the idea of what this is. And obviously within the election year, this movie is obviously going to spark controversy and a couple of things that this movie did. But overall, I think it'll be a great conversation going into later on in this episode.
Absolutely.
For sure. But before we dive into our spoiler review of the week with Civil War, as well as what we've been watching, which is also going to be a good one. Ernesto had informed me that we had watched something similar, and I'm very excited to talk about that with him. But before we dive into all of that, of course, we have news to discuss, all the entertainment news, and needless to say, it's been a big one for this week. CinemaCon 2024, the annual gathering of movie theater owners, took place last week in Las Vegas and delivered a couple of big announcements from all major movie studios. We've talked about CinemaCon in the past, and it's very interesting about CinemaCon that it's either like an event that comes out with a lot of news, which 2 years ago, because I looked into it, a lot of news came out, and then or there was like no news to come out of CinemaCon, much like last year, where the biggest thing to come out of CinemaCon was that Kraven the Hunter was going to be rated R. and that was the only thing to come out of it. CinemaCon is more of a place for theater owners and movie distributors to come together, and they're going to talk about some of the big releases. Sometimes they get exclusive trailers and first looks, and like for example, in the Disney presentation, they showed the first 30 minutes of Inside Out 2. So like stuff like that. So like there were definitely like footage, like there was footage floating around from Deadpool and Wolverine, and
Yeah, didn't they show like 9 minutes of? They showed like 9 minutes of uncut or.
Yeah, they showed like 9 minutes of that. They also showed a bunch of other like exclusive trailers that were only shown there that we're not going to talk about because like obviously we didn't see them and we don't want to discuss movie details about that. But surprisingly, a lot of news this year came out of it.
Oh yeah.
And we're going to start off with Paramount Pictures, who during their presentation announced a bunch of upcoming projects. I don't think anyone was expecting them to just drop a whole bunch of news like that.
They came in hot.
And they did come in hot. And the biggest and most exciting of these projects from Paramount Picture announcing that they are developing a live-action, rated R Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie based off the popular graphic novel series Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Last Ronin. Wow. First of all, wow.
Yes.
I was not expecting them to actually do this, considering that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is primarily for a younger audience, much like the movie that came out last year.
Yeah. What's really interesting, I mean, this is an iconic storyline that I haven't read yet. Obviously, I'm going to read it before the movie comes out. But yeah, I'm excited to see this. I'm all for this. It'll be interesting because this is like, so now we're going another R-rated comic book. So this is a variation on Deadpool. Probably this is going to be more serious, what it seems like.
It would definitely what it seems like. And for those who don't know the story, well, before I get into it, Taylor Burton Smith,
Tyler.
Right? What did I say? Taylor?
Yeah,
Taylor? I said Taylor.
It's okay.
Tyler Burton Smith, writer behind 2019's Child's Play and the upcoming film Boy Kills World, which looks very interesting, by the way, will be writing the screenplay along with original graphic novel creators Kevin Eastman, Peter Laird, and Tom Waltz. The 2020-2022 graphic novel miniseries is set in a bleak dystopian future in which Oroku Hirato, the grandson of the Turtles' arch nemesis Shredder, rules New York City as a Tertullian despot. Hirato has killed all but one of the Turtles, as well as their mentor Splinter. The remaining Turtle seeks revenge by wielding all four of their signature weapons, which is awesome.
Awesome. I like how they gave Shredder they're referring to him not as the comic series as his name, like Oroku Hiroto. Like that's gonna be like just the way that he's gonna reference him and just like the whole feel of it, like what you're gonna go through with him. I'm here for it. This project sounds great.
Also, it's live action. Yep. Live action we haven't seen in quite some time.
They got to get the Turtles right because it's like the ones that have come out have been very hit or miss.
Yes, that is true, and they haven't even touched the live action since the '90s, I believe.
Well,
they've been no, that's wrong. They did them.
The one with
the Michael Bay produced films.
Yeah.
I forgot about those.
Yeah, the one with Stephen Amell.
Yes, the very CGI looking Turtles, the live action ones. I forgot about those movies. I think it was like 2014 and 2016 those came out, so about almost 10 years ago. Wow, that just escaped my memory so much.
Well,
and those movies were fine. Those were fine movies.
Yeah.
But I think what's interesting is that they're taking a risk here in a way on a very popular graphic novel series that kind of subverts what we typically see the Turtles on screen. It's one thing to do it in a comic book. It's one thing to bring it out to the masses of like, you remember the Turtles you love and the pizza loving Turtles? This isn't it.
He doesn't eat pizza anymore.
Yeah, he just eats cheese.
What? Oh man,
that was stupid.
Okay, I appreciate it. I don't know if anybody else did, but I did.
I don't think so. No, I just like what I was like. What do you take out of pizza? Cheese.
Like, no sauce, just hard bread. Because I'm so sad. All right, we need to move on.
But needless to say, out of all the announcements that came out of CinemaCon, I believe this is the one that was the most unexpected as well as the most exciting.
100%. Yeah, agreed.
Out of all of them.
Agreed.
After that, Paramount Pictures then announced that Edgar Wright, director behind Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, Baby Driver, and Shaun of the Dead, will write and direct a remake of The Running Man based off the novel of the same name by Stephen King and the 1987 cult classic film starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. Glenn Powell, who recently starred in Top Gun Maverick, Anyone But You, and the upcoming Twisters film, will be the lead. Michael Bacall, the writer behind Scott Pilgrim vs. the World and 21 Jump Street and 22 Jump Street, will co-write the screenplay. The original story takes place in a dystopian America where a falsely convicted policeman gets his shot at freedom when he must forcefully participate in a TV game show where convicts, runners must battle killers for their freedom. I think that's an interesting movie to do today, and I think Edgar Wright is a great director to take on that role, and also a big starring role for Glenn Powell as well.
I mean, he's great. Everything I've seen him in recently, Top Gun, even the one with, oh my gosh, Freedom. What was the name of that movie? The one he did with Jonathan Majors.
Yes. Does it start with a D? This. Give me a second. I can see the poster in my head. Devoted? Is it? No. Devotion?
Devotion.
Is it Devotion?
It's Devotion. Yeah.
There it is. Got it.
Yeah, I mean, he was fantastic in that. So I'm sure this is going to be good.
Yeah, I've so far I've really liked Edgar Wright's most of his projects, so I feel like might be like a big budget one for them. He has definitely a creative vision, and so I think bringing that vision to life and kind of doing a remake of The Running Man, I think this is a good, like, one of those remakes where it's like, I can definitely see them making a better updated version of this for today. Like, this movie's probably won't come out for another 2 or 3 years. And so, like, yeah, I'm about that. And Edgar Wright, I mean, I love Scott Pilgrim versus the World. That's probably one of my favorite movies from him.
Yeah.
Something I actually rewatched just recently after watching the animated series. It was a great rewatch. It still lands today. So I think his level of comedy as well as his style can be pretty interesting coming from this series.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I don't remember if I've seen the original one with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Do you think Arnold Schwarzenegger will make a cameo?
I mean, they've remade other movies that Arnold Schwarzenegger has been in, like Predator and what's the other one that he was in? Total Recall. And he never I don't believe he made appearances in those.
That's
so
fair.
I don't think it's necessary.
That's fair.
But I mean, what do I know? He might just pop up just for the fun of it.
Hello, everybody. Everybody get down. Get to the chopper. All right, I'm done.
There's no chopper. Do it anyway.
Okay. All right, moving on. Paramount Pictures also announced they're going to be making, yes, you see that correctly. They're going to be rebooting the Scary Movie franchise. They're going to be teaming up with Miramax to reboot the Scary Movie franchise. Neil H. Moritz, the producer behind the massive franchises such as Fast and the Furious, Sonic the Hedgehog, and The Boys, will be producing the film. Scary Movie is going into production this fall. That is really quick and should hit theaters in 2025. The Scary Movie franchise has spawned 5 films from 2000 to 2013. All were parodies of popular horror films. Sure, I guess. I mean, these are like, this is another one that came out like around the American Pie era. So I'm curious. The only thing that's curious about this is a movie like this can survive in our society today, or is this movie a response to society today? It'll be now that I think about it, it'll be interesting to see what they do with this.
If the reviving or rebooting of this is exactly like what we got back, if this reviving is the same style as the original Scary movies, then I don't want it. Because honestly, like, I thought those movies were funny. At least some of them, anyway.
Back then,
back then,
like, do they land
exactly.
today? I don't know.
I don't think so.
I don't know.
Because then you had other movies that spawned from it, like epic movie, disaster movie, superhero movie. There was
Movie
a trend.
43 or...
I don't think that was a direct spoof, but I mean, I'm sure it was a spoof of sorts.
Yeah, it was like a bunch of... I think that one was like a bunch of shorts.
Yeah, it's interesting because like you had like parody movies like Spaceballs, which has become a classic, and there's like, and that's under the same vein, but I think it has done better as like lasting it because there's an original story there that it happens to be fully making fun of Star Wars in the process. This movie, it's like taking all these amalgamations of horror movies and kind of putting them together, and a lot of it doesn't land, especially when it comes to like epic movie and disaster movie. And like, I feel like those in some cases at the time were like guilty pleasures because like, oh, I've seen all these movies and now you're putting them all together and it's funny. But now those movies that they're parodying themselves are no longer relevant. Exactly. And therefore not even as funny then. It's like, it's definitely a movie for its time. I even forgot another one, Meet the Spartans, which was another movie.
Oh, I remember that one. I remember that one.
That was specifically parodying 300. And those movies were coming out so quickly because they were keeping up with what the movies that were coming out then. So in order for these movies to be funny, you need to be up to date with other current movies that are out.
Well,
so
let's see. Let's think of 5. What do you think? What do you think? Let's get 5 scary movies that you think that are popular that they could import into the next scary movie.
Okay, I mean, I already think of a few already. Like you can, right now, the big 2 movies that came out last year, horror wise, was Megan and Five Nights at Freddy's, and like you can easily go down the Blumhouse rabbit hole and grab a few from that. You had Barbarian, that was pretty popular last year. You have Talk to Me, which is a movie I recently just saw, which was I thought it was fine, but like you can easily parry off of that. There's also, you can go back to Scream. I mean, they keep reviving these movies. That's true. Again.
So they do have Scream to be the main core, but then maybe even A Quiet Place you could do.
Yeah, that's right. Like more of them. Get Out. A lot of Jordan Peele stuff.
Nope.
Get Out. Us. Nope.
Maybe. So maybe maybe. Not to say it's going to be amazing. I mean, maybe it will. Maybe the writing will be a lot smarter. Like the writing, I think. I don't want to say that. What I want to say is that the writing shouldn't be the exact same as the original films. They kind of need to, if they're going to make fun of society and like how everybody is getting butthurt about everything and everything. Like, it'll be interesting to see what comes of this. That's I don't expect this to be an amazing movie, but I am curious to what it is, what's going to come out of it.
I really feel like this should not go to theaters. I don't think it's going to make that much money. Honestly, This would be better for a streaming release than it would be for a theater release. That's just me.
I agree.
Overall, I'm very skeptical of this. I feel like this type of filmmaking is no longer, I don't want to say it's right, but like it's no longer funny, and
that's
like
what I mean.
It doesn't fit.
It doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't. Like you can't even really watch those movies anymore.
No, it's just cringy at that point of what they were, and so at this point, and like I feel like they're trying too hard to be funny, and the jokes only land when you know all of the other movies that they're making fun of. So they have an interesting job to do. Obviously, there's no actors, directors, or even writers attached to this movie yet, but yet we are starting production in the fall with none of those elements announced anyway. We just know that the producer, who is known for producing massive franchises, is behind it. So maybe there's a need or a vision there, but I need more people. I need to know more about the behind the scenes, who's involved with this movie, and then obviously a trailer to follow, because I don't believe that this is
hold on.
I don't think we need this anymore.
I agree, but I am curious. I wonder who of the original, I wonder if any of the original creators will come back. So it was directed by Keenan Ivory Wayans, who is like, he's like a legendary comic. I would be interested if him or his family. So like any of the Wayans family, they're all big in the comedy world. I mean, Damon Wayans Jr., he was in New Girl briefly. What was that other? He did a couple of movies. Well, there was some other stuff he did.
He did. That wasn't him. No, that was Keegan Michael Key. I thought I was about to say Friends with College, but that wasn't him. I think he was in another TV series as well, but mainly with New Girl.
Yeah, well, even Marlon Wayans. Like, see if he were to come back and see what they could do with it in with the comedy today. I don't know.
I don't think we need any of the Waynes to come back. I mean, because I feel like they're just going to bring in old ideas, in my opinion, unless they have something new to bring.
That's what I mean. Because I feel like over the original one was in 2000, so in 24 years, I would assume he would have a different spin on it than what he did then.
Yeah, but they didn't say that they were returning.
You're absolutely right. They may not.
So we don't know what comes out of this, but I'm not overly excited for them to rebooting this.
I have so right now I have mild intrigue. Now, if the original creators, the Wayans family, is involved, then it becomes like more semi-curious.
Right. Yeah, and it's also like it's hard to just go like for a movie like this. It's like, oh, they're doing this because nostalgia. I was like, no. There's nothing nostalgic about these movies except for that they happen.
Yeah, I agree. That's true.
So I don't know what the angle is, but again, time will tell, and apparently we're getting it very, very soon.
Okay.
Lastly, from Paramount Pictures, a couple of updates from some of their already announced projects. Paramount Plus has officially confirmed a Transformers and G.I. Joe crossover movie is in the works and will be released in theaters sometime in 2025 and 2026, which is also very exciting to see that come to fruition. That was teased at the end of Transformers Rise of the Beasts. So, I mean, this is a movie I'm very much looking forward to.
100%. Very excited.
The first animated film based on Avatar: The Last Airbender TV series will officially be called Aang: The Last Avatar. It will be the first film of a newly announced trilogy. Dave Bautista will voice the villain and will now be released January 20th, 2026, after being slightly delayed from its previous release date of October 2025. Man, are we waiting a long time for this. We talked about this maybe even 2 years ago when it was announced.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Yeah, we definitely did, because I think that's when I had finished the original series through the first time, and now I'm like halfway through, almost done with season 2 of Korra, and I just overall like the way they've taken the animated. Obviously, the original animated series is great within its own right, but I mean, Legend of Korra is just as good. I'm really excited for what this is to come, and I just really like the way how they expand the universe, but yet keep you interested in the original characters without them they don't oversaturate you with them. Like it's just there's a really good balance that this franchise that they do very well.
Yeah, and I did see that some of the actors they're recasting because obviously they're adults. So recasting some of the voice cast, but they're bringing back the same voice actor for Zuko, who has been the voice of him in every iteration so far, in this franchise, at least animated wise. Yeah. So that's good. They're bringing him back. I'm very much looking forward to this. It doesn't say if it's going to be on Paramount Plus or if it's going to be on in theaters, but it's one of a trilogy. So hopefully we don't have to wait another couple of years to see the next 2 movies that follow. Hopefully, since they know it's a trilogy and it's been approved for a trilogy, that they're working on all these all at once, and so maybe we can get these movies once the first one's released, them on a quicker fashion. But regardless, I don't want to rush perfection. If it's something really good, I'm looking forward to see the adults version of this as we move forward.
Absolutely.
Another animated Smurfs movie titled The Smurfs Movie will be hitting theaters February 14th, 2025, and will star Rihanna as Smurfette, and will be joined by a star-studded voice cast, including Kurt Russell, Hannah Whittingham, who was in Ted Lasso, Nick Offerman, John Goodman, Natasha Leone, Sandra Oh, Dan Levy, Octavia Spencer, Nick Kroll, and James Corden, and many more. Most of these voice actors are newly to this franchise. I know that they did 2 live actions. The 3rd movie was an animated one, and now they're coming back again, which I'm surprised we're just now hearing about this. That's coming in next year. So definitely one for the kids, obviously. Not really, probably won't watch it. Like I haven't watched any of the other ones, but another announcement that they come out with that no, I don't think anyone knew that they're making another Smurfs movie.
So my thought is, if it's Rihanna's leading it, and it's based on some of the other cast members, I feel like this is a response to Trolls. like is this going to be a musical? It sounds like it's going to be a musical.
Well, if you think about it, because I did look into this, I'm like, Rihanna, has she ever been in this franchise before? And she hasn't. Smurfette has always been voiced by a popular musician. So the first 2 live-action Smurfs were actually voiced by Katy Perry, and then the third Smurfs movie, which was all animated, was voiced by Demi Lovato, Smurfette.
Does she sing?
So now
does she sing?
I don't
Is
know.
that part of her character?
I didn't watch it, so I don't know if they sang.
Matt,
or not.
you're supposed to know all the Smurf
Yeah.
lore, okay? You're just supposed to know.
Specifically Smurfs lore.
Well, I don't know for sure. Maybe somebody who has seen the movie is probably like, yeah, that's what the movie's about. Like, or I don't know. I don't know. That was my original thought. But okay, cool. Maybe I might get forced to go see this movie because my daughter might want to go see this. So
That's fair. And then you can be the Smurfs expert.
yay.
Yeah. And the last announcement from Paramount Plus is that they announced another SpongeBob movie titled The SpongeBob Movie Search for SquarePants will be hitting theaters December 19th, 2025. More of a Christmas release for the kids as well. So, yeah, I mean, we've been probably talking for the last 30 minutes plus on just Paramount alone, that all their announcements that they did in their presentation. And we're not done yet with CinemaCon. There are other movie studios that dropped some news, but not as much as Paramount did.
Yes.
So moving on to Lionsgate.
So, Lionsgate, Jason Blum is reviving the 1999 cult classic horror film The Blair Witch Project for Lionsgate Film. Plot details have not been revealed, but Lionsgate Motion Picture Group chair Adam Fogelson referred to the film as a new vision for Blair Witch that will reintroduce the horror classic for a new generation. The film marks the first time in a multi-picture agreement with Blumhouse reimagining horror classics for Lionsgate. Blumhouse, which has a first-look deal with Universal Pictures, recently collaborated with Lionsgate on the 2024 film Imaginary. This is, and also the John Wick spin-off movie Ballerina will take place between John Wick 3 and 4, with Keanu Reeves confirmed to be in the movie. There's some exciting news here. I'm a big fan of the original movie. I think there's like a second one or maybe even a third one.
Yeah, I think so. I don't believe I've ever seen Blair Witch Project.
It's fine. It's cool. The original concept for the original one is cool. It's just like it's like a home video, like basically somebody like vlogging their trip in the woods, and it turns into like this scary adventure with whatever thing is out there, and it's very like open up to interpretation, and it's got like witches, and it's fine. It's cool. It's kind of scary. It's got that famous scary scene with the girl holding the camera and then it turns off, which ironically enough, we were just talking about that scene from Blair Witch is parodied in Scary Movie.
Right.
With her holding the camera, but in the Scary Movie, she's like got nose boogers that are pouring down on the camera lens.
That's right.
It looks like there might be 2 Blair Witch movies, 3.
Okay.
Something called Willow Creek is coming up as a reference to it, and Blair Witch 2. I guess I don't know. It looks like, and there was a TV show, Curse of the Blair Witch, Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2, and then Blair Witch in 2016, directed by Adam Wingard. They redid, which I didn't see.
Oh yeah, there's a whole I see that now. There's a bunch of them.
There's a game, apparently. There's several video games.
Obviously this spawned a definitely a franchise of sorts. Yeah, I feel like, because then obviously Paranormal Activity was probably inspired by Blair Witch and that made that franchise very successful. I mean, I think you can probably take that today and, do a spin on it as far as how we decide to film today, as like with vlogging's now a thing and YouTube is a thing. And I know other movies have played around with that, with Unfriended is another popular one that kind of used that as a medium. But yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, Blumhouse has always, and Jason Blum has always been a hit or miss on certain horror movies. And from your review on Imaginary, you said it was like okay.
It was fine.
It was fine.
It stumbled. I guess the best way I would describe it is that it kind of stumbled in the second act, but they were able to at least bring it home in the third act.
Sure.
They left me at the end. I was like, oh, well, that was a decent. Like, it wasn't like, oh, like a mind blowing ending. It was kind of predictable, but it was done in a good way.
Yeah. And so, like, yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, Jason Blum and Blumhouse have been reviving so many other horror classics, including obviously Five Nights at Freddy's, and they brought back Halloween. They did The Exorcist again. So why not throw in the Blair Witch Project to revive that project? And now what's funny is that they're working with other movie studios to bring back their horror classics, not even ones owned or acquired through Blumhouse. So Jason Blum is just going down the line and picking up all different franchises to revive here.
Absolutely.
or to launch. And I guess we'll see what comes of this. I think within today's, you can come up with an interesting storyline for the Blair Witch, but ultimately, again, this isn't for me. I never was interested in that movie. I never saw it. I probably won't. But yeah, for fans, maybe this is exciting.
This is another one. I have mild intrigue, but
yeah. And then even going back to what you mentioned about John Wick, I think it's funny that Keanu Reeves is now going to be part of the movie. Obviously, Ballerina just recently got delayed until 2025, and it will star Ana de Armas. It's kind of funny that like they felt the need to bring him back into the story, just to maybe get some more eyes on it, as well as it's taking place during 3 and 4, so right when. Like, if I remember, the ending of 3 was like right when the war started about to happen. Yeah. So he was on the run. So maybe he still is while this story's taking place. But
there's a connection point between 3 and 4 that involves the Russian family, the ballerina, that they're referencing. So I mean, I see it. I just spoiler alert: if you haven't seen 3, at the end of 3, he's presumed to be dead. Like, that's
at the end of 4.
Excuse me. 4. Oh, okay. So this one's in between. Okay, so this one is in between. Yeah. But he's even still like after 4 he's dead, and he's supposed to be already confirmed to come back for the 5th one, if and when it's going to happen.
Right. Exactly. I just think that if you wanted to try to make this your own thing, I would not have included Keanu Reeves in the movie.
But unless it's just brief, it would be great if it's just brief cameos of like. Brief instances where the movie in between 3 and 4 connects.
Sure. Again, a lot of skepticism for me here, because I do feel like that after the 4 John Wicks, I'm good on exploring. I think I remember correctly, we would have rather them explore the other character that was in the movie, not the ballerinas. But I could be proven wrong, and time will tell on that one.
Yeah, true. So moving on to Universal. We've got Five Nights at Freddy's. I feel like I should have had the theme song for that one ready. But nevertheless, Five Nights at Freddy's sequel is officially in the works and expected to be released in fall 2025. Also referring to Wicked, Peter Dinklage will be playing Dr. Dilliman in Wicked, which is coming November 27th of 2024. I love Peter Dinklage, so this is fantastic news. And it's when we saw Five Nights at Freddy, it was very expected. I mean, this movie made a lot of money, so it was almost guaranteed that they were going to go to do the next one.
Absolutely. I mean, it's crazy that it took at least to announce to the public this long that we're getting another one. Granted, the movie came out in October.
Yeah, that's pretty soon.
April,
I mean,
so,
that's a pretty
soonish.
That's a pretty soonish confirmation. I mean, especially because, whatever new animatronics they're going to have the Jim Henson shop make. And I think that's really, for me, that's what the appeal is. Not really the story, is more of, like, what kind of cool, like, real-life animatronics are they going to make for the next film?
Yeah, that's fair. And then regarding to Peter Dinklage, I mean, he's a fantastic actor. I mean, there's no regarding that. The fact that he's involved in Wicked, I think it's kind of funny. He could be more of a playful character for him. He's probably going to be all dressed up and most likely unrecognizable.
Yes.
But I no, I think that's a great casting.
Agreed.
I think he can play very well. I know in the musical, Dr. Dillerman has a fairly decent role in it, especially in the first part of it. So
yes, he does.
I wonder if he's still going to be involved in the second half of the film. But it's also interesting that this wasn't announced earlier. So clearly this isn't a last minute ad, because I'm sure they made some scenes, but maybe they wanted to keep his role secret. Maybe they wanted to save it for the movie, but obviously during CinemaCon, this is another way to promote the movie for Universal. This is a huge movie for Universal to be doing, and this is a part one of a part two. I think they got exclusive footage for that, and I know it was getting some rave reviews from that footage. It looks really good. And so we obviously got a trailer for the Super Bowl, and so I am very excited to see part one of this movie. Hopefully it lives up to the hype. I know the director, he did Crazy Rich Asians and In the Heights. So
yeah, I have high hopes.
Very much so. Yeah. And so yeah, not much coming out of Universal, and the same for Disney. Lastly, coming out of Disney, when Marvel was introducing some of their upcoming projects, people noticed that the upcoming Thunderbolts movie underwent a puzzling name change that sees Marvel adding an asterisk at the end of the Thunderbolts movie title. If you're watching us on YouTube or Spotify, you can see the image here of the presentation and the big logo right there, and there's an asterisk right at the end of it. After the presentation, Kevin Feige was asked to comment on the name change, and this is what he had to say, which is why we're even talking about it. That is the official title, and won't talk any more about that until the movie comes out. Okay.
All right.
I find that already, without anything, just putting an asterisk on the title has my interest. Like,
100%.
Why?
It's interesting. It's an interesting thing.
It's a thing that you don't think that will be interesting, but it is. It's like, because it's not something you typically see in a title, and if it is, it might be associated to something else, maybe related to the poster. And yet we don't know what that means and why they decide to put it in there. So obviously the Thunderbolts with an asterisk, there's a different meaning behind that title that we don't know yet until the movie comes out.
It's just
because typically,
no, go ahead.
I said typically with an asterisk, there's always like a addendum that's to it, where we're like, okay, well, this, but also read down below to see a more context of what this means. And so Kevin Feige is not allowing us to know that extra context until the movie comes out.
But I like this, and what I like about this is that this tells me that this title is not. This is like a pre-title. Like, that's the only thing you're getting is the name. So you're not getting any other indication. All this is a part of like Disney and Marvel's course correct with whatever they're doing. So to me, this is exciting news. This is a good thing for me.
Yeah, I think it brings more attention to the movie. That another reason to look forward to it. I mean, the title already, or the premise of this movie is already interesting. This is basically Marvel's version of the Suicide Squad, taking a lot of the anti-heroes and questionable heroes within the MCU and kind of bringing them together into this one big movie. Definitely a little bit outside the norm for Marvel, so I'm interested to see how that plays out. It says May 5th, 2025, so it's coming in within the year. And so yeah, definitely looking forward to this next summer. And we don't know much about it, which I think is also a good thing, especially the asterisk is now making it a little bit more, more things to talk about for this movie. But yeah, that's all the news that came out of CinemaCon. Again, Paramount is what kind of gave us some beefy information, but other movie studios had some stuff to offer as well. So with that, outside of CinemaCon,
a biopic based on the legendary comedian Chris Farley is in the works, with actor Josh Gad making his directorial debut as director. Paul Walter Hauser, best known for his Emmy Award-winning performance as Larry Hall in Blackbird, which I recently saw, which was phenomenal. Rightfully so that it won. He's a fantastic actor. They actually, like, looking at them here, if you're watching side by side, there's some similarities, and they could even, I think, even with prosthetics, they can get him probably looking pretty close to what Chris Farley looks like. I'm excited for this. The Oscar and Emmy nominee Scott Neustadter and Michael H. Weber, the writing duo behind 500 Days of Summer, The Fault in Our Stars, The Disaster Artist, and the creator of Daisy Jones and the Six, will write the screenplay. The film will adapt the best-selling biography, The Chris Farley Show, a biography in 3 acts by Tom Farley Jr., Chris Farley's brother, and Tanner Colby. I'm excited for this. I'm very, very, very much excited for this. I mean, I used to love watching Chris Farley on SNL. I used to love Chris Farley movies like Black Sheep, Tommy Boy. I mean, he was so good. He was so good. It was very, very sad. I remember as a kid hearing about that he died, and I was like, man, what we lost. Like that was one of those like we lost a good one. So I'm excited to see that he's finally getting honored and he's finally getting a movie to put some recognition on him. So I'm here for it.
Yeah, definitely. Excuse me, definitely a comic legend. And I think what's even better is that you have Josh Gad, who is known for comedy as well as his stage presence in Broadway. He's like, you can tell this is now coming from a passion project that he probably respected Chris Farley and his art form, and now he's deciding to now become, and go into the director's chair and make this film into a reality. Hiring, getting Paul Walter Hauser to be Chris Farley, I think it's a great choice as far as casting wise. And so a lot of potential, a lot of great potential here. I'm very curious to see and excited to see Josh Gad in the director's chair, since he's been our kind of funny man for quite some time now. So like it's another comedian directing this movie. So everything about this movie sounds fantastic. So I'm very much looking forward to it.
Same.
Moving on to some legendary directors and their next projects, and if you look at the image, there's a lot going on there. The 81 years old director Martin Scorsese shows no sign of slowing down as he has mapped out his next 2 films, with sources saying he plans to shoot back to back. Wow. And say what you want about his movies, but you gotta respect the man's hustle.
Yeah.
Like, he is not, I mean, at 81, you think you're just going to retire, but he has visions. And I remember him saying in interviews, like, I don't got many of these left. So I think he's I think he's literally going to die in that director's chair.
You know,
like
what?
He's going to keep going until he can't make
he's
movies.
Like, this is where I'm going to die doing what I love. So
seriously. And nothing but respect for that.
Yeah.
According to Variety, the Oscar-winning director is looking to independently finance an adaptation of A Life of Jesus based on the Shusaku Endo's 1973 book. Sorry if I mispronounced that. He took the same approach with the 2016 drama Silence, which was also adapted from an Endo novel. In fact, Scorsese would like to reunite with Silence star Andrew Garfield for A Life of Jesus, along with Miles Teller. So there's that. And obviously, I thought it was interesting that he decided to self-finance this project. I wonder why. I'm sure there's other studios that will most likely wouldn't help him that, but maybe he feels that deeply about the project, or he knows maybe he's been down that road before with Silence and like, no studio is going to want to back this, so I'm just going to do it myself, which, again, more respect for the man in the grind, in the hustle, for making sure that his movies are made. And also he knows who he wants in it. It's like, yeah, Andrew Garfield, I like that Miles Teller kid. I want them both in my movie. I mean,
Scorsese knows how to pick fantastic actors.
That's very true. And speaking of which, Martin Scorsese's second film would be a Frank Sinatra biopic that would see Leonardo DiCaprio playing Sinatra and Jennifer Lawrence portraying his second wife, actress Ava Gardner. Both Sony and Apple are frontrunners to finance the film. Obviously, Apple just did Killers of the Flower Moon for Scorsese, so I'm sure they would like to stay in collaborations with him as well. Whether or not that movie made money is irrelevant, but maybe Apple just wants to keep Scorsese as a name to have under their belt. But I mean, again, massive respect for him. I think Leonardo DiCaprio is an interesting choice to portray Frank Sinatra, and having him reunite with Jennifer Lawrence because they both worked together in Don't Look Up. I think they did well together there. So a lot of interesting things coming out of Martin Scorsese for sure.
Yeah, there's some on-scene chemistry that's naturally there, so I can see it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here for it.
I don't know much about Frank Sinatra in his biography, but I think it's interesting that Leah. I mean, I guess there's some similarities. You can see in the photo here that they kind of maybe look similar. Definitely his second wife. For Jennifer Lawrence, I see more of a connective tissue there. Even though I would love to see Jennifer Lawrence stay in comedy, though, because I thought she was fantastic and No Hard Feelings. So the fact that she might be going back to drama is like, if Martin Scorsese hits you up, you're not going to say no.
You're going to say no. Sorry, I'm gonna go make funny over here.
But yeah, and also, I mean, I don't know how many movies Leonardo DiCaprio has worked with Scorsese. Now, I mean, he's been working with him since The Departed, probably even sooner. The Aviator, I believe that was also Scorsese. So, like, as much as Martin Scorsese has been working very closely with Robert De Niro all these years, he's also taking Leonardo DiCaprio under his wing. And hey, if you find a director that keeps hiring you to make these interesting projects, why not?
Yeah, exactly.
In the same Variety article, sources say that Steven Spielberg's next project will most likely be a UFO film based on his own original idea, which I love to hear. Mm-hmm. David kept frequent collaborator with Spielberg in such films as Jurassic Park, The Lost World, War of the Worlds, and Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, will write the screenplay. Again, I love to see original stories come out of this. Especially from Spielberg, since he's created adapt many, but also like him stepping away from like political biopics like Lincoln and War Horse and The Post, like him actually working on like a fun movie again potentially.
Yes.
Like he did with like I think his last project was the last two was Ready Player One and West Side Story, and then he also did The Fabelmans, which was also a great movie. So yeah, let's continue to put out original stories for sure.
Very true.
And then sticking with legendary directors, Quentin Tarantino is no longer planning to make The Movie Critic, which would have been his 10th and final film as a director. Sources say he won't be looking to rewrite the script or revive the project, instead plans to move on to something new, which is very interesting. Brad Pitt would have starred in the lead role, with the film taking place in 1977 and followed a small-town movie critic who wrote smart reviews for a porn magazine, which I don't know what smart reviews for porn magazine means.
Well, because I guess like you would expect. What I gather from that is that somebody who's writing like quality to be in like the New York Times, like these big publications, and he's writing for a porn magazine, like the last place you would expect an amazing writer to be. I
see. An interesting premise for sure.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, I guess if you're Quentin Tarantino and it's not working for you, I guess it's better to know to abandon the project and to think that your last movie that is also self-inflicted. He's choosing for this to be his last movie that he's directing.
True.
And I guess if your heart and soul isn't into it, then move on, I guess.
Yeah, he wants to open himself up maybe to produce more, like start like, you know, mentoring the next Tarantino. Or I mean, you know, there obviously won't be another Tarantino, but maybe somebody who shares his like vision, or someone who's like maybe thinks the way that he does. You know, I don't know, somebody he connects with. That's what I would like to see. If he's done making movies, then show someone the way of your way, and let's see what their spin on your movies is.
Yeah, I believe, because I feel like this is also very misleading. Yeah, I think he's also stated that like this might be his final film that he's directing, but he's not done with, say, like writing. I think he's open to continue to write movies that he won't direct, but also he said he's open to directing TV. So like this no longer directing movies. This seems to be only in, like, as it sounds, directing movies. But he's still open to directing and maybe in a TV show fashion, or continue writing for movies. So like he's not going to be out of the business, but for whatever reason he's deciding to make. He did say for a long time he's going to make 10 movies, and we're down to the wire on this one. So again, if the project ain't right and you know this is going to be your last time, then I'd rather you put all your passion into something that you're passionate about, rather than something that along the way you're like, you know what, this isn't going to work out and I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah, 100% agree. 100% agree. All right, moving on. Keanu Reeves has been cast to voice Shadow in the upcoming film Sonic the Hedgehog 3 in theaters December 20th, 2024. In the games, Shadow is an anti-hero of sorts as he serves as Sonic's arch rival and occasional ally. So very very anti-hero-ish. Reeves will be joined by returning cast members Ben Schwartz as Sonic, Colleen O'Shaughnessy as Tail, and Idris Elba as Knuckles, Jim Carrey as Dr. Robotnik, Jeff Fowler will be returning as director, and the writing team behind the first two films are also returning. This is fantastic news. I mean, Keanu Reeves to me can do no wrong. Like, like he's another one. Like anything he does, he's just somebody you can tell that he brings it all, whatever that is, whatever the project requires of him. Like he brings that. He just seems like a very dedicated individual.
Yeah, and I thought he brought a lot of great voice acting work when he did Duke Kaboom in Toy Story 4.
Exactly.
And so, I think he can have a lot of fun with this character. It seems like Shadow will be more involved, not maybe as a main character. They heavily tease him in the end of Sonic 2. So I'm assuming that he would have as much of a prominent role as Knuckles did in Sonic 2, and now Shadow will in Sonic 3. So I am very much interested to see Keanu Reeves' spin on this character. That's coming out very soon in this December.
Absolutely, yeah.
And finally, to round out the news, it was announced that Apple TV Plus has renewed Monarch Legacy of Monsters for a second season, but more importantly, plans to develop multiple spin-off series based in the Monsterverse. So it seems like whoever is in charge likes how Monarch happened. Like they either like the results that came out of Monarch, or they see the potential that people still really want to see these monster movies because Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire made a lot of money at the box office.
Yeah.
So I feel like that has something to do with it as well. They're like, wait, people still really want to see this. We're not going to lose this franchise. We're going to pour more into it, given its second season. I just don't know if we need the second part to it. Yeah, sure, let's get a second season of Monarch. I'm perfectly fine with that. But multiple spin-offs?
But what is that? And you've seen that, correct? I think you told me you saw some. You finished Monarch, didn't you?
Yeah.
Where do you see, based on what you've seen, do you see the possibility for spin-offs? Do you see any avenues like, oh, okay, well, they're definitely going to try to spin off of this, or there's this they'll probably spin off of? What are your thoughts?
I mean, as far as a second season goes, yeah, it makes a lot of sense based off where the first season ended to continue this franchise or this series as a second season. You're following Monarch. Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
What doesn't make sense is the multiple spin-offs. It's like, where else do you go? I mean, as Todd mentioned in 2 episodes ago, if you haven't listened to our Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire review, we had Todd on the show, and he talked about how Apex was introduced in Godzilla versus Kong, and we really haven't got much context of that. So we saw that was introduced in Monarch Legacy of Monsters. So season 2, we can explore that. But outside of that, I think they're taking up all those loose ends and putting it into Monarch. So what's left? I don't know. Unless we are solely focusing on, say, a Hollow Earth show that's primarily spinning off more from the movies, less of the actual show. So yeah, I'm skeptical on the spin-offs aspect, but at least the Monarch has my interest for another season. I don't depend on where they go. I'm not sure how long we can make this last, in my opinion, because there's obviously going to be more story on the humans, less on the monsters when it comes to this. So you really have to keep those humans interesting. But I am all for more projects within the Monsterverse because I feel like they're a lot of fun. But the big thing I like about it is monsters going at each other, and Monarch is very much not that. So with that, I think we have a good potential for season 2. I'm curious to see what they mean by multiple spinoffs.
Okay.
But with that, that's all the entertainment news we have for you guys this week. It was a whole bunch of it, but we got through it all. If you want all the latest and breaking news. You can always follow us on our social media channels on Instagram at boxoffice_bingers and our Facebook and Threads page at Box Office Bingers. We'll post all the latest news over there first, and then we'll come back in the show and we'll talk about it. So with that, we're going to be diving into a fun segment we like to call What You Watching. So Ernesto, we'll start with you. What have you been watching?
So to start it off, first of all, Matt, you'd be proud of me. I split my photos like you do now. For those who are watching now, I finally found the time. Anyways, so I started 2 different series, and they're kind of both on opposite ends of the spectrum. The first one is The Gentleman, which is the Guy Ritchie series. Now, this was recommended to me by Sonica. Thanks, Sonica, for the recommendation. It's a fantastic series. My first time through it, first time watching episode 1, I think maybe I was just busy and maybe I just wasn't in the right mindset because I don't know, I just couldn't latch on to the material. I could care less about everything that was happening. But then I sat there, I was like, all right, well, let me give it another shot. And man, it is funny. It's very in Guy Ritchie fashion, but it's a good show. It's kind of like a mob crime drama, but it's more of a comedy than it is a drama. It's really, really well done. I would highly recommend it. And I'm only like 2 episodes in.
I saw the trailer for this, and I always felt that I was not going to be into it. Like I know it's Guy Ritchie did a movie called The Gentleman, which I don't know if it has any ties to it or not. It doesn't look like it does, or if it's even in the same world at all, just using the same title. But yeah, I saw the trailer, and I wasn't a big fan of the movie. The trailer didn't intrigue me. Yeah, I kind of just wrote this one off. But if you're saying it's good, then maybe I might give it a chance.
Yeah, so the main character, he's working for the military, and he gets called home because I believe it's his father who's dying. And he's one of a bunch of different siblings. They've got crazy money. They've owned their manor since the 1500s. And when somebody dies, all the wealth and everything gets passed down to the firstborn son. But in this one, it gets passed down to that guy there. I can't remember his name. 1 second, I'll look.
His name Leo, like his actor name, like his actual name.
It is Theo James. Is his name?
Theo
James. He ends up he gets inherited with this fortune and this empire that he's now dealt with to manage. And Giancarlo Esposito in it, who I'm a huge fanboy of. So anything he's in, he's great. But it is really, really well done, and just the scenarios that happen are just crazy. There's one episode where a guy's having to dance like a chicken for one of the mobsters, and then it's just a cascading thing of events that they currently have to deal with every episode. So it's only 8 episodes long, but each episode is an hour. It's basically a little mini movie.
Interesting. I'm trying to see if this was, because according to IMDb, it started and ended this year. So I was like, is this a limited series? That makes me more into it if it is.
It's just a long movie, basically.
Yeah, pretty much, which I'm okay with. Yes. If this was potentially an ongoing thing, then I was like, I don't see myself even considering a season 2 if I'm even into it. But now it looks like this was supposed to be a limited series, which now I like more, because now I know this is a beginning and middle end of a story to this, and that's calling it. It is a spin-off of Guy Ritchie's 2019 film of the same name. Spin-off of what I don't know, but anyway, interesting. Okay, yeah. All right. You might have sparked my interest again.
Okay, and then on the total opposite end of the spectrum, I started a new kids TV show with my daughter Bella and Edward, called My Dad the Bounty Hunter. And at first they were like, "We want to watch this." I was like, "Yeah, we'll watch this," and I'll just sit here. I will half watch because this is probably not going to pique my interest. And I have to say, it's pretty cool. It's like this futuristic world where this dad, he's an intergalactic bounty hunter, but then he only has, he's separated from his wife, which I thought was a really interesting angle to put in a kids TV show that's meant for a younger kid, like young, like maybe like anywhere between like maybe 7. I think it's rated like TVY 7. But it's actually really well done. It's got some good action. Like the storylines are very intriguing. The kid actors are funny. It's decent. It is decent. It is a decent Netflix series. I was pleasantly
Netflix.
Yeah, it's a Netflix. Sorry, excuse me. It's a Netflix series. Yeah, I was surprised at how much I did like it. Enough for me to bring it up. And like the other day, me and Ed were laying in bed like before the night. I was like, all right, let's go ahead and knock out like 3 of these episodes. But it's like a it's like 22 minutes. There's only 2 seasons out right now. It's like the perfect like your after school special, like that kind of show. Very episodic. It's really well done. Very. I was surprised at how much I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it came out. Both seasons came out last year. So yeah, those look like it's ended. So it might be coming out with more. So if you like it that much after the end of the next 2 seasons, it looks like more's coming.
Here we go. I guess I'm strapped in for the next few years. And to finish, I started probably one of the best TV shows out there right now, and that is Fallout on Amazon Prime. And this is something that you and I said we both share, and I am a huge fan of the games. I think Fallout 4 is probably one of my favorite video games that I've ever played. The show is great. Like I was hooked from the very beginning.
How far are you?
I think I'm maybe 2 episodes in. I think we finished the first episode and we're like halfway through the second episode. And man, the first episode, like spoiler alert, it's like Game of Thrones Red Wedding shit, like almost literally.
Oh yeah, you're right. I totally forgot about that. I finished it. I watched all of it. And it is as good as everyone's saying.
Probably
they're touting
the best video game series ever made. Like one of the best.
That's about to say that's what people are saying. It's the best video game series ever made, and I feel like it's interesting that this is from me coming from a person who has not played any of the games.
Oh, you should.
I went to this very cold into what this story is about. I knew very loosely what it is, but I decided to not look into it that much. And it's like I want to see it as a show. Like I knew a little bit about say The Last of Us, but for the most part, I experienced that show as the show was happening rather than playing the game itself. And I think what a lot of people are seeing more about this show than say The Last of Us, because The Last of Us just last year was touted as the best video game series ever made. And now a year later, Fallout comes out and now they're saying the same thing. And I feel like what makes Fallout much I feel like more interesting and most likely better than The Last of Us. It's a little bit it's
there's a conversation there. There's a conversation.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
The tone is lighter for sure in the Fallout than The Last of Us, but I think the biggest comparison that I saw, and I feel like what a lot of people are taking more appreciation for it, is that The Last of Us was a straight adaptation. Like basically what you saw from the game is in the show. So maybe less surprises for a few people, less excitement. Also, the show is very bleak by nature, so that makes a lot of sense. The show, though, is from my understanding, it's taking liberties of creating its own story within the world of Fallout, while also showing you a lot of familiar themes and I wouldn't say necessarily characters, but definitely character types. So, obviously, they the character types of the people in the vault, the Brotherhood, and the Ghoul
the Raiders.
And the Raiders are all things that are within the world, but we're not necessarily following the same people that were in the games, but we have people who were living and part of those factions that are now being represented in the show. And I feel like since with that angle, everyone's on a surprise. Everyone can enjoy it as if you're familiar with the video game or not. And I think that is why a lot of people are calling it better than The Last of Us. And as someone who has watched it from start to finish, I very much enjoyed it. It helps that this was from the creators of Westworld, Jonathan.
Oh yeah, Jonathan Nolan.
Jonathan Nolan and Lisa Joy. They came right from Westworld into Fallout, and I personally think that they took the best elements in Westworld, from what I remember from the 2 seasons that I watched. They took out all the bleakness from Westworld, and then you put it in Fallout, and you gave us a great story within the first season, as well as throw some little fun in there, throw some hard-hitting drama stuff, that like a lot of character-driven stuff here, which I really appreciate, because now we're really following these characters and we care about them, and then the decision that they make hold a lot of weight into it. So this is probably one of my favorite shows to come out of this year so far.
Oh, I 100% agree. Somebody who's played Fallout 4, I haven't played some of the other ones, but I mean, I've played Fallout 4 at least 2 or 3 times too. Like, I love, it's a game where like what you do affects the world. Like, if you take out a city, well, guess what? Like, that city is gone. Those people, it affects the story, and there's like multiple different endings, and like it's a very much choose your own adventure. Like, you don't even have to do the main storyline. You can just go out and just kind of explore and just do whatever, like explore the wasteland. And it kind of seems like the show is taking that same aspect. There's a bunch of different callbacks from the show, right from the game, that I picked up on, like that little Pit Boy. That's like your menu. That's like your menu thing in the game. And like, you can check your stats, you can upgrade yourself with that thing, you can check radiation levels, which we saw in the first level. Like that little syringe thing that she pulls out, I don't know if it comes back up later, but in the first episode where she stabs herself, that's what like the health looks like in the game. That's funny. When they're talking about different people, and they talk about companions, because in the game you can meet people along your path, and you can befriend them, and they can be your companion and like help you do missions and stuff. Like right in the first episode when Walter Goggins is at that party, that little robot thing, that's Wadsworth. He has like a flamethrower. He's got like a saw. Like, when I would play the game, I would make he would be my companion throughout the entire game. I was like, you're awesome. Like, you are clearly what I need in this society.
It's interesting you use the word companion, because I believe that is something that has been a through line throughout the episode. Not necessarily with robots, but as far as the theme that's been coming along throughout this season is companionship in certain elements, and how they are deciding to have like different groups, and we're following different groups, and different relationships are being being established within the show. So I found that very interesting that you brought that up. A lot of people I feel like I'm more interested in is outside of the show, but the decision of releasing all the episodes at once. And sorry,
I said thank God.
Thank God. And so like I think a lot of people were questioning about that, more of the like a lot of the news articles and like the decision behind that, because on a show like this, and what's happening right now with X-Men 97 and even Shogun right now, which is another show I'm going to be starting soon. Week to week has been culminating so much buzz around these shows that like you can't wait to watch the next one. And after finishing it all at once, for me, I was most likely not going to watch it week to week, and I was going to wait for it to all come out and then binge it. Now they decided to release all the episodes at once, so I was able to binge it a lot quicker and sooner than, closer to its release date, rather than 8 weeks after its release date. So, and especially how some of these episodes ended, definitely felt like it could have warranted like a week off, like a week in between, where you can like simmer on what you saw, speculate on the next thing that could be happening. This show felt like it was primed to be on Amazon Prime. It was,
and now they got that Amazon money, so.
Yeah, I know. It feel like this show was primed for week-to-week viewing, but for whatever reason, they decided that they didn't want to do it, and they released all the episodes at once. I do feel like in some ways it missed an opportunity to become more engaging with its audience, rather than like mostly people who want to watch it got it done within the weekend. And so by the end of the week, like, or the next 2 weeks, that stamina might not be there anymore, and you're moving on to the next show. But a lot of positive buzz around is definitely helping it for people who maybe had no intention of and who were going to wait for a little bit, are now going into and watching the show. So I definitely look forward to talking to you more when you watch more episodes and get down to the end. I do, and I will say this, I love how the show ended.
Yeah.
I like the season finale. and I didn't catch what they were teasing for immediately, but the internet told me very quickly.
Like, I'm gonna look it up.
Yeah, the internet told me very quickly what that meant and what the future holds for this show. And Amazon already confirmed that it has been renewed for a second season. So we're getting
that's what they needed. What I've seen that's been really interesting is that the sales, like very similar to The Last of Us, for the sales for the games have skyrocketed. Specifically Fallout 76, which is the online version of Fallout, which is like that they've seen like a significant increase in online users since the release of the show. So it could be could be that too, like to get the buzz on the game, more buzz on the game.
They did say that Bethesda gave Fallout 76 for free for all Prime members.
Oh, really?
So that could be the reason why for the uptick specifically for 76.
I got to get my free copy then.
There you go. I also saw there was I also read an article from describing how Jonathan Nolan and Lisa Joy would actually play Fallout 4 to grab some inspiration for Westworld. So obviously they are very passionate about the project, and I think they were able to create and weave in a nice original story within this world to make it fun for both the people who have played the game and for the new viewers. And I think if you can get that recipe right, then you get this, and excitement ensues. And like, I'm very much looking forward to the second season. I just hate that we probably have to wait another 2 years for it.
Yeah, it's probably gonna be a long time.
But I think this is definitely up there. I think this is a show we're going to be talking about. We're not going to stop talking about, and it might pop up again on one of the best TV shows that come out this year so far.
Oh, definitely for me. Like I haven't even finished it, and I already know. And like I don't know what else I've seen Ella Purnell in, but she's fantastic as the main lead. And so is the gentleman who's in the Brotherhood of Steel. I mean, and I haven't even met Walter Goggins. Well, briefly in the first episode, but as far as like his character in this new wasteland, who he is now, I'm curious to see what comes of that.
Walter Goggins is fantastic in this show, and based on the first episode, obviously you see him in human form and then in ghoul form, and we get a lot more of that. And I think he's probably one of my favorite characters in the show.
Awesome,
but hands down. Also, some people are putting similarities. Aaron Moten is his name, who played Maximus in the Brotherhood. There's people are saying this guy shows a lot of similarities to Jonathan Majors. Maybe this could be our new Kang.
Oh, I could see that.
Yeah.
See, and that's the beauty of getting somebody who's unknown. You get to in something like this. Like, it's cool to get a well-known actor, but sometimes it's great to get somebody who hasn't been in a big role to this, give them a chance as a breakout. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not opposed to it, but I mean, we'll see what Marvel does at the end of the day.
True.
But yeah, if you haven't watched Fallout, easy to say, go check it out. It's on Amazon Prime. And so that's all you've been watching, correct? Yeah, that's right. So diving into mine, other shows. Last week was very movie heavy. This week has been very TV heavy for me. And I binged Halo Season 2, and it's solid.
That doesn't sound.
I think it's pretty good.
That doesn't sound solid.
No, it's pretty good. I feel like I have like a love-hate relationship with Halo because like it looks so cool, but sometimes it's just a little too slow for me and like deep sci-fi, and I'm spending a lot of time trying to understand all of this world building that we're doing. But what was funny was that this season has a new showrunner, and because the last showrunner apparently did not watch any of Halo or play any of Halo or had nothing wanted to do with the whole series altogether. So obviously there was a disconnect when it came to season 1 and its audience. A lot of people were like kind of commenting about that. So I'm not sure if within the resolution of that was to get a new showrunner for season 2, but regardless of how you felt about season 1, there is a clear difference between season 1 and season 2. That's for sure.
I don't understand. Like, you would figure, let's do an interview. We're thinking about doing this show. First question: have you played the game Halo? Or I'm sorry, maybe that's the second question. Do you know of the game Halo? Do you like and have you played the games? No? Okay. Have a good day. Like, or, even if you haven't, are you willing to play through all the games and really understand the lore before we do this project? No? Right. Okay. Goodbye. Like there's not enough directors or creators around in the world, like in Hollywood, in America, that have the likelihood that have played this game and loves and respects the lore, that'd be willing to direct and make something of it. Like, I don't know. That just seems like a basic first interview question for me.
Yeah, you'd be surprised maybe how much movie studios don't care about it and is like, hey, can you make this possible for us? And they're like, yes, and like, then you're hired.
Have you seen the clip of all the Marvel directors? There's like a slew of Marvel directors and creators that they're all in sequence saying, no, we haven't read the comics. We don't know. We were told not to read the comics because we wanted a fresh take on the character. Like there's like a YouTube clip that has them mashed all together, and it's like, this is the phase after Endgame.
Yeah. Yeah, well, clearly there's been a shift after Endgame. Absolutely. There's no doubting that. But yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that you have to be an expert, but at least have some knowledge and some passion behind it, because the passion what gets the good stuff.
True.
And I definitely see it here. I do believe that season 2 was better than season 1. I loved almost every action scene in this movie. I mean, sorry, in this second season. The action is like top notch. It is really, really good. Like, the action is where I was like invested. Unfortunately, everything else after that was like it was fine. It's like when the drama hit, I was like, don't care. But then the action came up. I'm like, oh, back to Karen again. Look at that. Look at them.
And I'm in.
And I'm in. Master Chief from season 1 and season 2 just looks so fucking cool. Like I'm still blown away by how cool he looks in this show. He looks fantastic. There were storylines that I really didn't care about, and there were storylines that I did. And when we went to the storylines I didn't care about, for me, it really dragged. It really, really dragged for this show. And this is like the world building where I feel like this seems unnecessary. I don't need this much. Like, the main storyline is good enough. This is like when I play video games. Like, very much so. It's like you have your main storyline, which is what I'm focused on, and then you have some guy in the corner be like, come help me. It's like, nope, got a story to do, sir. I don't care about your sadness and what your life is going through. I'm worried about me and my main character, and we got a story to do. That's what I came for. I didn't came to go save your cat. No, don't care about that. I'm here to go along this mission. Except for when I'm playing Spider-Man, then yes, I will save your cat, because it's never not fun. It's always fun to swing around New York City.
Yes.
That never gets old.
Yes.
But in most games, I don't care about the side missions. And I feel like the secondary storyline that was here in this show, I could care less about. But the main story was pretty solid. And then it kind of made up for it in the finale, where the finale felt like it came out of nowhere, and I was pretty much lost the entire time. So like, it wasn't as strong of an ending as what I've hoped. I feel like there's a lot of randomness that came for the finale, but for the most part, after all of that stuff, it was like, I still thought it was better than season 1. I feel like there was more love and passion behind this second season. But like, I still keep coming to Halo because there are interesting parts about this that I enjoy, but it's very much like a love-hate relationship where it's like, I like what you're doing when it's good, and I really don't like what you're doing when it's bad.
Okay.
So that's how I feel about it. So kind of like 50-50 on it. But if you're still interested, I definitely recommend giving it a watch, because as a pure action standpoint, it's some really good action sequences in here.
It's on the list, but it's like definitely maybe not. It's somewhere in the middle. It's somewhere in the middle of the list. Which is a very extensive list. So the series may be finished by the time I get to it, but I think eventually I'll get to it.
That's fair. I definitely, there's no rush at all for it. And the last show that I had binged in its completion is Invincible Season 2. Ernesto, I'm assuming you have not started it yet.
Okay, so I started like half of the second season of the first episode, and I felt like I was watching it. And I felt very lost because I could have sworn that in spoiler alert for the end of the first season, it ended with a huge fight between him and his dad, like having it out. But then we come back to the season premiere, and it's like father and son fucking up the world. Like I don't know what I was like. Did I miss something? Is there an episode that I didn't see, or was I supposed to read something before I watched this?
You must have not got very far, because I would say like not even 10 minutes, 15 minutes into that episode, it explains what you were watching.
Okay. Because I was extremely confused.
I don't think. Here's the thing. I think it's hard to come back from season 1 of Invincible. It was a very, very strong first season.
Yes,
for sure. I mean, everyone was talking about it. That fight scene with Omni-Man and Invincible is legendary now.
Absolutely, agreed.
Like that fight scene was brutal and bloody, and it really the show was making a stance because of how brutal and bloody it was and how violent it was for an animated show. And on top of that, it was engrossed in rich storytelling, and then it ended on such a high note that, like, where do you go from here? And I feel like that is where the struggle lies in the second season, where like it was hard to top the first season, and it's still hard to top the first season. I don't think it helped, at least for the masses anyway, that you decided to release the first 4 episodes all, within a week of each other, and then in November or September, and then you took a couple months off, and then you decided to then release the back 4 in March. And so like you split the season up, which you had people interested, then they lost interest, and now they're back again. Then you have to tell people to remember the first 4 episodes. And so I didn't go through any of that. I just waited for all of it to be over, and I binged it all, which I'm glad that I did, because for me it was easier to retain the story, and I wasn't prepared to just take a break in the middle of the season like that. So I'm definitely happy the way that I watched it. But this season was very much about character, building character, and almost predicating off of the fallout of the end of the first season. And I feel like that when it's good, it's good, and when it's sticking to the hard drama of the show, it kind of brings it down a little bit. So Robert Kirkman is known to focus on his characters, especially seen in The Walking Dead. And so very much like The Walking Dead, eventually the draw kind of drains a little bit. Like, you get it. So unfortunately for season 2, like the brutality of some of the scenes is like, no, I get it. You're
doing your thing.
You're doing your thing. It's like the wow factor there isn't there anymore, because you're used to it. And so then you're relying on the character and their stories, which some of them are good. Don't get me wrong. Like, overall, I enjoyed the second season. Like, I think it's definitely worth the watch. It's still great animated television. It just doesn't compare to the first season. And so it's already renewed for a season 3. And so Robert Kirkman has said, which I didn't learn this till after I finished the season, but each episode has a breakdown of that said episode with Robert Kirkman and the creators behind it after every episode. The problem is that they don't tell you that, and you have to go into the I don't know if it's at the end of the episode, or you have to go into the behind the scenes, like a separate tab for it. But I found the separate tab after I finished the whole thing. It's like, I would have loved to have watched this after every episode to get some more context for it. So for me, it was too late to go back and do it for all of them. But I did it for the finale anyway.
Now I get to do it for all of them.
Now you get to do it for all of them. But in the finale, in the finale version of it, Robert Kirkman said that for season 3, which they were already renewed for season 2 and 3 together, he said for season 3, it's all like crazy and a whole bunch of stuff is happening. So he was hyping up season 3 as if season 1 was its own thing, and then season 2 was relating to the fallout of season 1, then, and like in preparation for season 3, then like season 3 is going to be your all, blazing, all full action heavy moments in there. So it almost feel like in a way, when you think of it like Infinity War and Endgame, all the setup was from Infinity War and all your resolutions from Endgame. So in this case, all your setup is in season 2, and now all of your payoff is in season 3. So that's what I'm hoping for this show, is that you're doing your job to come back from season 1, and kind of bring it down a little bit to only raise it back up even more for season 3. So that's what I'm hoping for at this show.
Okay, right. Yeah, I don't know. I wasn't as excited, especially the whole split season thing. My thing is, when they go to season 3, it needs to just all drop. Do you think that season 2 would have served better if it was only like 4 episodes and then that's it? If they had condensed the story a little bit?
No, I don't think condensing the story is the problem. I think where some of the characters I decided to focus on, I feel like were more of the problem. I think 8 episodes is fine. I do believe personally that it's better for a binge watch. That's for sure. But I think they're probably going to release these episodes. Like, what's funny is that I believe that they should have dropped all the episodes for Invincible all at once, and they should have put Fallout as a week to week, both coming from Prime.
True.
So anyway, I don't make those decisions, but overall, it was a good season. There was a funny moment in there where they made fun of how long animation takes to do animation. And I know a lot of people are criticizing Invincible for the long break that it had between season 1 and 2, and they even more or less addressed the audience and was telling them, like, animation takes a long time. Get over it.
You're just gonna have to wait.
It was a fun little jab, in my opinion, that I enjoyed when it happened. So there you go. That is all I've been watching. So with that, we're going to be diving into our spoiler review of Civil War. What people are touting as some of the most controversial movie of the year will be left to be determined. That a lot of interesting stuff about this movie, as well as the behind the scenes of this movie, written and directed by Alex Garland. So Ernesto, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts on the film? I want to set the mood. Change the lights to green.
So there you go. Did from the very beginning, but it's fine. We're here now. I really, to be honest, like, this is my first real entry into Alex Garland, and I really enjoyed it. I loved how thought-provoking. What I really like about his style of filmmaking is how thought-provoking he can be. Because even still a week later, I'm walking out of the movie, and I find myself like thinking about certain moments, or thinking about certain character developments, some of which we're going to get into here in a little bit. But overall, I think it was fantastic. The production design and the sound design were absolutely fantastic. Like, when the gunfire was going off, I almost felt like I had a duck. Like, it was viscerally loud. Just the timing wouldn't have lined up. This is a movie I think deserves to be seen in IMAX and or Dolby. And I think it serves for like multiple viewings for you to, like, if you really want to dive into everything that he was trying to touch there. He seems so intentional with everything that's either on screen or everything that's said. Like, I don't know. I have a newfound respect for him as a creator. Something that been pointed out is that the film it's very apolitical, so it doesn't really take sides on the issue, which I agree with, because he mentions in certain interviews that's exactly what he wanted. He wanted it to be a cause for conversation, not necessarily to focus on any singular issue or one part of the issue, or to seem, because if you focus on one side, you're telling the audience how to think, whereas this is the start of a conversation for both sides to speak. There's, from both ends, you can have that conversation and see where you meet in the middle. I really enjoyed the Jesse Plemons cameo. I guess I would call it a cameo more than actually being a part of the film. But I feel like his scene was arguably one of the most pivotal scenes in the film, is where you see the journalists come head to head with some opposition who, don't necessarily respect reporters and or journalists as as what we call the fourth estate, somebody that outside force to check the government, which that to me was the primary focus of the film. It's like a real callback to old school like journalism, old school reporting, as opposed to like journalism, like where it's more of like getting all like war reporters down there really trying to figure out what's going on, as opposed to like just reporting on it. I mean, it is fantastic. Probably one of Kirsten Dunst's best performances I've ever seen her in it. Like,
Agreed.
Like she was absolutely phenomenal. What else? There was a lot of lots of hard hitting action, great use of sound. You obviously should see it in Dolby or IMAX. I did see it on their like not the Dolby screen, but the other main big screen that they have at Disney Springs. And I was satisfied, but I did walk out going, damn, I wish I had seen it in a better medium. Okay, that's all. That's all I got for now. I want to hear your thoughts, because I feel like I hit a lot. There's a lot of, because there's so many different points that you can really hit on.
Yeah. So as far as I saw, for Regal anyway, which is the theater that I typically go to, I have Regal Unlimited, and just recently, actually, as of was it Ghostbusters or Dune? I think it was Ghostbusters. Was so very recently that now there's no extra charge to see a movie in RPX, which is Regal's response to Dolby.
Good. They listen to you. They listen to the podcast and knew that you needed it.
Yes. And so now, since there's no upcharge to go see the movie in RPX, I'm like, well, wait a minute. Now I have another option. Even though I always had that option, I chose to see it in RPX for Dune, because they were doing it. They had a free. They were waiving the fee for the first weekend, if you saw it in the first weekend. And then after that, they're like, we're waiving the fee completely for all subscribers. So what's nice about that is that they didn't up the charge for it. It was just like, yeah, just here. Now it's part of it, maybe more incentive. And also comparing to AMC, which always had...
Yeah, it just makes sense.
It was never an upcharge. Right. It was never an upcharge to go see a movie in Dolby or IMAX for AMC. So now the only upcharge for Regal is if you see the movie in IMAX or 40X. So there's that. But the theater that I go to, there's no IMAX and there's no 40X. So it's only RPX, and I'm okay with that. That means that theater is 100% free for me.
If it's free, it's for me.
As long as you pay for the subscription.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But so I was able to watch in RPX. So their theater is the screen is bigger, the sound is louder, obviously. And let me tell you, that movie scared me more than once. It is no joke. Like, I jumped in the pure loudness. It's like, I'm not used to this. It was like bang bang. I was, Jesus, my God. Who said to do it that loud? Like, there was like even like a quiet moment where they were like right before they went into. They were following. It was a scene where it was very quiet, and like they saw the gunfire from a distance, and they were like, it was a scene where they're like, oh, if it's still happening in the morning, we're gonna go check it out. And so it was that scene where everything was quiet, and all of a sudden they just cuts to the next morning. It was like bang bang bang, and I was like.
But you know how great is that? Like, we don't need to see y'all getting up. We don't need to see you put your clothes on or see how you feel about going to check over there. Like, let's cut right to that. Let's cut right to that action moment. And like, even I mean, I didn't even think about that until you said something. The fact that they were able to, without setup, just throw us into this moment, and for us to be like, all right, here we fucking go, strapping in, like, and it was that scene alone was just so visceral and like really in your face. And that, for me, that was a turning point for Jessie, where she was coming off as a scared kid, and like this is like the first time she had been being hardened, where she was really in there. And it almost was like foreshadowing for the end of the movie, because there was a lot of her going in and them pulling her back there. Like, it was the start of all of her doing that. And obviously that's what led to Lee's undoing at the end of the movie, which I 100% want to get into the ending of her specific character later.
Right. There was definitely a lot of like, I will agree with her as far as Jessie's character, that it was a turning point for her, because very much up until that point, it was like she's very scared and skittish but passionate, and then she got like a taste the thrill of it. Something that what's the character's name? The other one. I should have pulled this up already. Joel, his name was Joel. Joel was always like, he was like an adrenaline junkie. He wanted to be in the fight. He didn't really care what was going on or who they were fighting for. He just wanted to be in it. And I think Jesse was one who was able to kind of get a taste of that and get that adrenaline rush, because we even see that moving forward of like even her bouncing into the next car. It's like
what
she
the fuck
has
was
that.
Like, it was so crazy.
Yeah, honestly, it was a very silly scene. Didn't really need to be there. But like that was like another way of showcasing like she's rebelling a little bit and like being more comfortable with this environment of it all. But overall, I told you that I was very excited about this movie just based off the trailer, and I don't think this movie disappointed at all.
No.
I think it, like you mentioned it earlier, where the director didn't really want to pick sides politically, and I think that was a very smart move on his part, because otherwise this movie's kind of one-sided. The fact that a lot of people are complaining about the geography of who's where and what's what, and like they're having a problem with like Texas would never join forces with California. It's like, yeah, because it's yeah, if you don't mind putting up the map. Yeah, this was the map that the movie provided. This is an actual poster for the movie, and you have the Western Forces, which is basically a division of California and Texas. Then you have the New People's Army, which is mainly in the West Coast. More of the centralized is your loyalist loyalist states. And then like toward, which I think is funny, is this called the Florida Alliance, where everything on the south end of it is all and the east side is all like together. But we primarily focus on, I believe anyway, we focus on the Western Forces, obviously, and the Loyalist states, which is where we spend almost the entire time of the movie, because we were traveling from New York to DC. But we also took the long route, which I remember people stating that like it's only like 220 miles to get from New York to DC, but because of all of the destruction and the mayhem that's happened throughout the years, they had to go the long way, making it over 800 miles to get to DC from their journey. Yeah. So they had to travel through a lot of the Loyalist states, where from my understanding, the Loyalist states were agreeing with what the president's actions were, and the Western forces controlled by in partnership and with an alliance with California and Texas were the ones that were kind of going after the president in this movie. But a lot of people are up in arms about like California and Texas will never join forces and all this stuff. And I was like, I think
you don't know
you're
that.
missing the point.
First of all, you don't know that.
That's true. You don't know how people in America will turn to given if pushed to their limits for the most part.
Also,
but the second
go ahead. I have
the second thing is like, this is also a movie. It's fictional. And so who cares? Like, this isn't supposed to mimic real life. It's a movie. That's very fictional. So this isn't based on real thing. This isn't based on what would happen if the world fell into a civil war. This is a version of that, not the definitive version of that. Calm down, people.
Like, seriously.
Like seriously. But I just find it that they like, this will never happen. Like, well, technically, in all intents and purposes, this movie will never happen. So what's the point of the minute details that are within this? That's the fact that this is a thing in this movie. Just lean into it,
exactly,
whether it makes sense or not, because this isn't real. So I didn't understand people getting hung up on specifically this map. This is just the map that gives me understanding of what this movie is. Because I will say, for one thing, if I was going to knock this movie down a peg, is the fact that I wish I was able to get more world building on this movie, because I do feel like part of the movie was trying to catch up with what's happening in this world. And I felt like I was a little bit lost on trying to keep up with the different factions, and like this map is definitely helping with that. But like within the movie itself, I just wanted some more context. But when it comes to it,
I agree. But I really, and this is where I say the production design like really shines. I think like when you see the gas station and the whole gas station scene, that's like a moment to me. That's a snapshot into that area and what it's like for the people who are living there. See these guys coming up with guns, and like, and even in that moment, you're getting this information of this interpretation of how what's happened to their currency and kind of where they are in the world, where she's like, I'll give you $300 to fill up the gas in the car and my cans. Yeah. He's like, $300 won't even buy you a sandwich. And I think there's such a correlation now because, the talk now of how inflation is so high and how that relates to our society today. And I thought that was so just an interesting note, that one line, but yet it carries so much weight behind that back and forth between those two characters. And then she mentions like, oh, well, it's 300 Canadian. He's like, oh, oh,
wait a minute.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
Clearly,
go ahead and get that gas can, girl. Let's go. Why didn't you say that to begin with? We love Canadian money here.
For some reason, we don't know what value that holds in this world.
But it's interesting. It makes you intrigued. But to me, like on something in a scene as them just getting gas, like in your mind, you're already spiraling, which is where I really credit his writing. Like an innocuous scene that's so easy of just somebody getting gas is built so much there. First of all, there's so much tension because these guys are armed. Mm-hmm. They're coming up them. There's that tension of like, oh, fuck. Well, if I come here and get gas, is this the last time I'm ever going to pump gas? Or are they about to just take us out and take our car? And then this is kind of like Jesse's first introduction because she sees as they're pulling in, she notices something in the background, like maybe people hanging. It's like, to me, it was almost too quick to really get a full description of what it is. Like after seeing it, you know what it is. But then like it was enough for her to get out of the car and wanna investigate. And this is where I feel like this is where innate in her, regardless of how scared she was more intrigued than she was scared. And even then, she walked up on this guy, she walked up on these guys hanging, because which we later find out that they looted this gas station and then they caught them. The other guy comes up on her and he's just casually talking about taking these guys out. He's like, do you want to put them out of their misery? Do you want me to just kill him now? We were thinking maybe we just strap him to the front of the car and drive him down the street. Like, what?
Yeah.
And then for her to be in that like war reporter mindset, to still think, well, this snapshot is crucial for us to understand what it was like here. To get that picture of him posing in front of those bodies. Like a picture says 1,000 words. And what I really loved is when we get those moments where you're supposed to like kind of evaluate, you do get these film snapshots of the pictures that she's taking, and then even within the photos, their story themselves. Like there's just so many different little aspects that he threw in there that I really enjoyed. And even in that moment, you see the initial growth of her coming into her own as a war reporter, photojournalist.
Yeah. What's crazy is that I think what the scene that follows afterward, Jesse was very scared and frantic, and she kind of froze in that moment. And they're in the scene in the car where they're leaving, and she was like, "I was so stupid. I didn't take any photos, all that stuff." And it's like, and then as a human being, you want to help them. Like they should not be strung up like that, just human decency. And like, what do you do in those scenarios? And then Kristen Dunst says the line as Lee. She says, once you start asking yourself those questions, you can't stop. So we don't ask. We record so other people ask. I think that's a very powerful line when it comes to
love it.
Like
beautiful writing. Such beautiful writing. God.
To not only the scene, but I think for more what the whole movie is about. And kind of like, I remember reading the article that you sent me, is like Alex Gardner is doing this as like a love letter to old school journalism and war reporting. And like to that line's credit, when you're out there, you're not supposed to feel anything. You're there as to document. You're there to record the life that's in front of you. It's hard to, like, if you cared about what's going on, then as we see toward the end of the movie, you die yourself. Yep. As monks of other people in those, like when you're protesting, you're only supposed to document. You're not even supposed to be visible in these areas. You're supposed to be like almost invisible, and you're just there taking photos of what's happening around. It's for me, it was a very powerful line that kind of spoke to me throughout the movie of like, we do the job so other people ask those questions, not us.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, they don't ask what you did when you took that photo. They just talk about the photo. They don't talk about the photographer in that photo. It's like, why didn't you help them? Why didn't you help that person who was being held captive in a tire and you just burnt that tire alive? But you got the shot, and that's what matters.
Yes, you reminded me of when I think Kirsten Dunst is having like this she's like contemplating like her life, and then we go through like these series of moments, like one of which is where this guy has a tire on him, and she literally is watching him being lit. Very exactly what you're saying. Like he's being lit on fire, and then you like how up and close he puts the camera right up to this guy's like almost like his midsection up to his head, where you just see the anguish as he starts to be engulfed in flames, and then she's there, not helping him, but taking pictures, documenting this event. So that we have, but there, you know, you should help him. But then, are you like he's already dead? So, are you? How are you are you helping him? You're helping him by getting those photos and putting the word out there, and having the world see what atrocity is happening to the people in this area. So there is a need for old school, that style of journalism. It needs to exist for our democracy to survive. And I think, to me, that was the message I got walking out of the theater. Like, it's not about who was right, who was wrong, because it was very, like, there is no real resolution. Like, we don't even really know if the war ends. Like, the ending in itself is something.
Yeah,
like
it's kind of up in the air.
It's very up in the air. Like, the only thing that's definitive is Nick Offerman. Like, you know, he's in the very beginning and he's in the very end. Like, they grab him, they cap him, and that in itself is like, there's this moment there of like, you know, what would you do if you were in that situation? You're the reporter, and you're gonna talk to the president who caused this civil war to happen. What's the quote? What can you get out of him before they just blast him?
Yeah, and even that sign, the whole movie was the catalyst of like the what kind of brings us forward is that they're trying to get to the president before they kill him, more or less. And in that moment, it's kind of cynical when you think about it. But like then again, that is maybe what war reporting is. It's not like we're not here to try to save the president. Like, that's not my job. My job is to get the story. And some people can say that is like inhumane. But also, there's a lot of real stuff that's rooted within this movie, and I feel like that is one of them. You're not there to rewrite history. You're there to document it. You're not there to stop something from happening or having your own views on the matter to try to stop or have it go one way or another. It's weird because it's very different when you see a movie like Nightcrawler, which was, you have a Nightcrawler, if you haven't seen it, stars Jake Gyllenhaal, and it was amazing. But it has he is a journalist and kind of like a stringer of sorts, where he goes out and gets these like really, you know, these group and like critical shots to tell a story within journalism. And he was doing that in a very, not the right way, but also he was getting the story and the length he was willing to go to get that story. It's kind of eye-opening. In some cases, it's like, oh, this man's crazy. And you can see that movie one way. But then you go look at Civil War, this movie, and you see that none of these people are crazy. They're just documenting what's happening. Yeah. Like, they're not meant to put themselves into the story, which is another aspect of it where Jesse kept taking photos of the press in it instead of taking photos. Like, they were like, I think I was watching a video and they were describing one of the first images that Jesse takes is of Lee taking the photos of what's happening in the New York riots. Yes. Not Lee taking a photo of the event itself. And she was almost like fangirling over the fact that that's one of my favorite reporters doing her thing. So you're taking a photo of her doing it, but as any reporter would say, they don't want to be the story. Yeah. You're focusing on the story itself. And if you look at a lot of her photos, you see that the press, like one of their members that they're with, are more always in the photo for the most part, which is very interesting. And then it comes down to the final act of the movie, where is very haunting when you see about it. But before we get to the final moments of the movie, I do want to quickly talk about Jesse Plemons. I teased earlier that there's an interesting story behind his scene in there, and he wasn't supposed to be in the movie.
What? At all?
Yeah, at all. At the time, I don't think he was even credited at the movie, but he is now, and obviously he was all over the promotions for it. But it was supposed to be a different actor, and he backed out last minute. That actor backed out last minute from that role. And Kristen Dunst, who is his wife, Jesse Plemons' wife, said, "Hey, are you free? like, we have someone backed out real quick. Can you do this small role for the movie? And he said, yeah. And that's how he became involved with it. And what's crazy is that within the scene as well was that because the director wanted to make the scene more intense, he purposefully hid the cameras so the actors didn't know where the cameras were in that scene.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So they were hidden. So that interaction with Jesse Plemons in that scene will be even more intense, because not like they're anticipating or anything like that. They were just there in the area. And even makes it even better was that Jesse Plemons didn't even meet with the rest of the cast before the scene even started. So he just walks up into the scene, just being even more terrifying in the context of what the scene was. And
Wow.
It is arguably one of the best scenes in the movie, to think that was even of how it was supposed to go.
It arguably makes the movie, it to me, that scene alone puts the movie up another notch for me, because I feel like Jesse Plemons was a perfect encapsulation of whatever their other side is. He was the perfect, he was able to hone that quick. And the fact that story alone is just a true testament of what an amazing actor he is, and just as a creative individual in any role that he seems to have put himself in, that with less prep work than any, just walking on a scene, was able to deliver the scene that we got in this film. That is fantastic. That even more so makes that scene just has a little bit more weight. And I mean, and obviously that scene leads to Lee's mentor being shot. He dies trying to save them. Very ironically, now that I think about it, because Lee later dies trying to save Jesse, and her mentor died trying to save all of them. Full circle. Didn't put that together until right now.
What was his name? He was.
I'll tell you right now. It was Sammy.
Sammy. I mean, he even warned them not to go down there.
Yes.
And he said, "Don't." There's no reasoning with them. Granted, basically, he was saying, "Don't go out there and save your friends or our friends," but at the same time, they did what the human thing was. Is like, we're gonna go out there and save our friends. And he was like, "We're the press. We're American," and just without hesitation. And this was in the trailer. And honestly, that scene alone was what made me want to go watch this movie. He just scratches his beard and goes, "Which American?
What kind of American?
What kind of American
are you? Where are you from?" And even, and you know what? Once again, what a great use of almost one of the best moments of the film, in a way to use that in the trailer without giving away the best parts of the scene. That's what's really good, because the best part of the scene is immediately after that, is when he starts further questioning them about where they're from, and then Wagner Moura, Joel, I think he says he's from Florida, or I forgot where they says, Lee says she's from Colorado, and then they get to the one guy. I don't even think, did he ask him before he shot him, or did he say,
No, he asked him. He's like, "Where are you from?" And he goes, "Hong Kong." He's like, "Oh, so China," and then shoots him immediately.
And then his other friend, who was the tweaker from the very beginning, with the whole driving, he obviously kills him. But then those two, they obviously they almost needed to die, because they caused that moment to happen. Because this whole passing between the car, what was that? I guess when you live in a dystopian future, you got to find what little bit of modicum of fun you can while you're going to report on the next horrible thing.
I guess, but I mean, I felt like it was a little unnecessary, because it doesn't really explain how, due to reckless driving, they got stopped and then taken over to the pit, more or less. So it was a little bit confusing of how that transpired. But
how I interpreted that was, maybe they hit, maybe there was a roadblock, they crashed, and then they dragged them over there. That's how I interpreted it.
It didn't look like the car crashed, though. I didn't think it crashed.
No, what I mean is, they hit they hit the roadblock of these people with guns, and then they had to pull over, and then they pulled them out of the car and then dragged them to that pit area. Because by the time they were there, they were already on. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a deleted scene of them coming upon them, which I feel like we could have seen that. I would have liked to have seen that. That would have been a good thing to see. Not this whole where are they? Oh, they just fucking vanished. Where did you go, Houdini?
There was also a lot. I mean, there's a ton of great moments in this movie. Another one where they walked up into this winter wonderland aspect of it.
Yes.
That was, which I saw that it was inspired by a real thing that they were. I don't know if it was for this movie or for another movie, but I think I read that the director kind of walked up to this random Christmas little village in the middle of the summer in Georgia, and I think he thought that was just strange, and I think he ended up using it. Maybe not that specifically, or it was. I'm not too familiar with it, but it was inspired to be in the movie regardless. So I thought that was pretty funny, and then the interaction for that was also funny too, because he was like, "So what are you?" He's like, "What are you doing?" Like, "We're shooting that guy. He's trying to kill us."
Why?
Yeah. He's like, "Why?" He's like, "Did you hear me? Do you know why we're shooting?" He's like, "Because he's shooting at you." He's like, "God, finally, someone understands what I'm talking about."
Oh, so you speak English.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but it's also again a little glimpse into the world. They don't need a reason to kill anybody. It's just they wanted to.
Yeah.
Like, that guy shot at us, so we're gonna shoot at him, and that's the end. That's the end of the story. And then we get down to what I think is probably one of the most visceral parts of the movie is the war in DC.
Oh, intense.
That was intense, no doubt. And a lot of people are like, "Whoa, look at all the destruction of our national monuments." I'm like, is it that really that big of a deal? I remember a movie called Independence Day, and they blew up the White House. So I mean,
and let me just say, like, as far as the assault on DC, almost like as far as visual effects, they were like, I could argue that it would look real. Like, the visual effects are almost invisible. Like, you can't even tell.
Yeah, the action scenes within that war in DC was really incredible, and also seeing it through their eyes as reporters, and like you see Jesse now really comfortable in that scenario, but also still very sloppy as she was in the first time they were doing it, and like they continuously to pull her back. And then you see Kristen Dunst as Lee being like really freaked out in that moment. It's like almost like that pressure has gotten to her, like the pressure of like doing this for so many years, and now it's to probably one of the biggest points, the pinnacle part of this, and like she is kind of breaking down in the pressure, where you see Jesse's character embracing it all, like the transition of your mentor and your mentee there. Like you see it in their eyes, like again constantly freaking out, but also knows better.
Yes,
knows better because she's very familiar with the terrain and like how war is done, and Jesse's over here just kind of bouncing around and not really caring if she gets shot. Yeah.
What I will say about that is I think that stems from Sammy obviously getting shot and passing away. And there's a moment where she takes a picture of Sammy, but then she looks at it on her camera, and then like after her having this mindset of, you know, getting the record, and she deletes the photo. To me, that was the moment when I said, "Oh, then she must be done." Now she's done, because for her to see all the atrocities she's seen, but then she found the one photo that she couldn't bear to keep during this moment, which is the last photo of one of her dear friends and mentor, and she couldn't bear to look at it anymore. And I think from that moment on, we saw her downfall, and then Jesse was her rise. So, in which obviously led to me, it was kind of. I'm curious your thoughts on the end, on Kirsten Dunst as Lee Smith, the ending of her character. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on that?
I think she went back on her golden rule that she kind of said in the beginning of the movie, not as a journalist, but as a person. Once you start asking yourself those questions, you decide to not to. So in this particular case, not in the sense of for her career wise that she shouldn't do it, but I think the biggest thing is when she decided to care. When she started caring is when she slipped up, and she didn't want Jesse to die. Lee knew exactly what she was doing when she went over there and tried to save Jesse from the crossfire, because obviously she got shot in it for saving her. Jesse would have died in that moment because she's naive, and Lee, obviously staying behind, knew exactly the motions that she needed to go through. But Jesse wanted to get that shot of them coming out and shooting them was a deadly one. And so it wasn't one for Jesse, it was one for Lee. But even the next one the next scene that transpired was as soon as Lee gets shot, Jesse was there taking the photo of the action as a war reporter would do, taking a photo of the moments that are happening in there. Unfortunately for the situation, it was your mentor that getting shot trying to save you so you can get the shot that you wanted. I was watching a video going over the movie, and it was explaining that it wasn't symbolically anyway, it wasn't the Secret Service that gave the final blow to Lee. It was the camera shot that got the final shot of Lee dying, not the final shot of the secret security, which I thought was an interesting way of looking at it.
Oh, okay.
But even more that continued after that is that she died. She went down on the floor. Both Joel and Jesse did not look back at all.
Oh yeah, that was gonna be my next thing. Is that like neither of them really took even a split second. I mean, granted they couldn't because all the gunfire, but like
Right.
they were immediately. Joel was like, "Well, yes, I guess I'm gonna have to deal with the death of one of my dear friends in a moment because we're about to get the shot of the president before he dies."
Right.
So it's like you make that in that choice. You make that in that moment. Excuse me. You make that choice of, am I working right now, or like do I need to deal with the fact that my friend died? And in that moment, even these individuals, they have to choose their job. Like as hard as that must be to walk away from your friend dead on the floor over there. Like this is a moment that you're the only one who's going to get it, and this is a moment that's going to be talked about and captured for lifetimes to come. Like your names are going to be like memorialized because this is a pivotal moment in American society. So like, of course, I just objectively looking back, I understand them choosing to do what they did, but like when you look at it from as far as like a friend and a human aspect, it's like that. How sad is that?
Very much. It's very sad. I think it was more polarizing because obviously in the context of the scene, they have to keep moving forward, and I understand that as far as like getting the job done. But I think what was more polarizing was that they didn't even look back once.
Yeah, I agree.
There wasn't even a reaction. It was just like, we have to keep moving forward, and that's like, you can have a reaction and keep walking. Like in a lot of these war movies, or like you see the people like kind of being dragged away as like there's an emotional response to when your partner and the person that you're following dies. Like they still have to move forward, but they're visually distraught and visibly, like within the scene. This one, straight face, is like, yep, you're dead, because that's what the job is. And if you do something wrong, that's just the line of fire. You were just in it, and now we have to keep moving forward. I think to me that was more polarizing than anything. It's like they didn't even look back. There was no reaction to it, and we never even got that because the movie ended shortly after they got the final shot of the president.
Yeah, he gets the quote, and then they're sitting there posing with his dead body. Like literally, like they all like get next to each other and they just pose next to the president's dead body on the ground.
Yeah, which is also a pretty intense photo when you think about it, because what was crazy that they got the president and he was like, wait. And you think in some case of a moment, you're like, don't kill him. Don't, like he is the president. You have to keep him alive, all that stuff. And then the next thing that comes out of his mouth was, I need a quote. Not as for a human standpoint, like we should not kill the president, but as I have a job to do. Yep. So before you do any of that, I need a quote. And then the quote was, don't let them kill me. And then he says, yeah, that'll do. And then he's like, proceed.
That'll do.
And then they shoot him. And then like Jesse was there to take the shot. And so you know that her career has now blown up from that moment on, whatever that career may be. But also, what an intense way to kind of close out the movie, and like the totality of what these war reporters would go through to get what they need to do, and the adrenaline rush that they presented. Even like as you see them weaving through the streets of DC, you see how intense that can be. Just in a war setting, as well as throughout the whole movie, you see all the different people that they interact with. I mean, to me, it definitely displayed a lot through the eyes of a war reporter, more so than anything I've seen in recent years that couldn't have even came close to telling this idea. And it just so happens to be under the story of a civil war within our, American society. But yeah, I didn't really get hung up on the political aspects of it all, of like what makes sense and what doesn't make sense, because that wasn't what the movie was about. The movie was about that here is a fictional time that this could happen in American society, but we're really focusing on the war reporting that's happening within the context of the story. So to me, that I was really kind of blown away with that type of, like, visually, I was kind of blown away at, like, that storytelling. Like I said before, I just wish I got a little bit more context of this world to kind of give him more understanding. Even the speech that the president gave in the beginning of the movie, I would have much rather, like, get some context there of, like, how we got to this point. Not all of it, but just, like, something to get me through.
It's like maybe like a more of a recap. Instead of us listening to his speech, like, maybe we should have started with more news about the things that different happened. They, like, one of the main things we get a notion to is the Antifa massacre, and even then, they talk about the massacre, but they don't talk about it about what happened or what side they were coming from or anything like that. But that also points back to the whole apolitical nature of the film itself. Right.
And so I guess that's my only gripe with the movie. Looking at it as a box office sense, when you think about it, it didn't seem like it made a lot of money, but at the same time, it kind of did. So Civil War is A24's most expensive film to date at a budget of $50 million. It, believe it or not, it actually surpassed expectations and topped the box office and became A24's biggest opening ever, with $25.7 million in its debut. It's also the first A24 movie to open at number 1 and the biggest rated R start of the year. So in hindsight, it doesn't look like much, but I just listed a lot of breaking records for A24. So essentially it's kind of a big deal. Now, at the time of the recording, we don't have the recent numbers of what this movie had done in a week. So we only know that the debut was 25.7 million. I'm curious going into its second week if it can at least break even on its budget.
Agreed.
Because there's not a lot of big movies that are coming out this week. So it does have some, like, the fact that the fact that it opened number 1 with, like, Dune and Ghostbusters and less of those movies, but more importantly Godzilla x Kong. Like, after 2 weeks of being number 1, Civil War came in and was like, okay, like, people want to see this movie now. We're kind of slowing down on Godzilla. So
I mean,
like,
we see internationally it made, like, no money.
yeah, domestically 25.7 million, internationally 1.9 million, with a total of $27.6 million. It's not a surprise that people internationally will not care about a movie like this. It's more focused on, Americans will most likely be more interested in see how this movie plays out, less on how the rest of the world sees this movie.
And I don't normally, but, like, look at, like, the breakdown within the different countries, but I do think it's interesting that a movie about the Civil War in America did really well in Australia and primarily Russia. I think that alone, like, okay, obviously that tracks.
That tracks, yes. But yeah, I mean, overall, final thoughts on the movie, Ernesto.
Well, I have to say it was absolutely. I mean, I really enjoyed it. Just a quick thing. A couple of notes from the that Alex Garland talked about in his interview. He addressed the ambiguous ending in the Vulture article. Also, shout out to the Vulture. It was a great interview. I mean, it was long, a very long article, but I think it was a very extensive, and it really, like, if you truly want to get an understanding about how Alex Garland feels about this project, some of his past projects, it's really well done. But he also, in the article, he talks about his ambiguous ending, and they said, what do you make of this obsession with solving ambiguous endings and filling in every last bit of imaginative negative space in a story with explanations, backstory, and lore? He says, fill every fill every single gap in a narrative, you still will not get this perfect, harmonious, unified response to every single moment and every single beat. It just never appears. The quest is quixotic. Sorry, I don't know that word. I think most mainstream movies do exactly what you said. They are open to less interpretation than the other kind, but I suspect if you go to any film website, you'll see fans angrily arguing over the beating in a movie that already explains everything. Then talks about how satisfying, and then he talks about like Anatomy of Fall last year and how satisfying it was because there was some ambiguity in the ending on where they ended up. And then in there, he also talks about old school reporters versus journalists and old school journalism. He does address not directing, that he is going to take more of a writing role. And he mentioned someone who, Ray, who was on the military side of the movie that they were working on. Here it is, Ray. All right. So a Ray question would be something like, what's the military objective in the scene? So Ray Mendoza. He was their military advisor. He's going to be working on a project. Him and Alex Garland are going to be working on a project together. And the way he dictates it is that Ray is going to be mainly like he has all this experience for whatever project they're working on, whereas Alex Garland has the tools to make it a successful film. So like this guy's probably going to be mainly directing, but then Alex Garland it sounds like he's going to be more in a support role. And this is kind of even similar to what we were talking about Tarantino earlier, where, when you see that you're done, which he kind of, he wants to focus more on writing than he did directing. And I even, reading that he only directed Ex Machina and some of his other projects because of how literal and like he wants certain scenes to be played out, and some of the wording has to be is a specific way because there's so much intentionality in his writing and how a scene is constructed and what that scene means in the overall arc of the story. So as far as Civil War goes, this was an amazing movie. I'm also looking forward to whatever projects he's going to be attached to later. This has definitely sparked my interest. I think this weekend is going to be filled with Ex Machina, and if I can find Annihilation, I'm probably going to check that out as well. I'm in the Alex Garland mindset, so I think I'm going to go down the rabbit hole.
I think you should definitely watch Ex Machina. Machina. I'm never going to say it right.
I still love you.
It's never going to happen. Thank you. Say it again.
Machina.
Ex Machina. There you go. I definitely recommend watching that movie. I thought that was I think the first time he did writing, directing, and it was a phenomenal film. I was enthralled with it 100%. Annihilation was okay. I didn't love it as much as Ex Machina. Damn it, said it wrong again. And so
like Mach 5. Think about Mach 5.
Mach 5, Ex Machina.
You see, you got it.
Got it. That's all I needed. But yeah, so yeah, that movie was great. Annihilation, not as much. And then he also did Men, which came out last year. It didn't look that interesting to me, or it came out in 2022. I never watched it. It was like mixed reviews on that movie.
I saw the trailer for
and
it.
Then,
it looked strange.
Yeah, it did. It did very much look strange. Also for Ex Machina. Is that right?
Oh yeah, look at that.
There you go. I thought about it. It stars Oscar Isaac, which had a phenomenal performance in there as well. So I think you're going to really enjoy that one. But yeah, honestly, I think what this movie represents, I think this is probably my favorite movie out of Alex Garland. Like, I think this encapsulates like what he wants out of this movie. It encapsulated some deep conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like I think it has a very powerful message it says, not only with our society but also with war reporting, and like it paints a very interesting picture within all of that. And I was like, Ex Machina was very very dense and like deep sci-fi. So like it's definitely a slower movie that has you thinking, but this one was more of a ride that I was like really invested in from start to finish. Where I feel like with Ex Machina, it was more like it was a little bit of a slow burn, and then after the movie was over, I had a lot to think about after I watched it. So yeah. So as far as my rating is concerned, I'll probably give Civil War a 4 out of 5.
A 4 out of 5? Ooh, see, I was thinking either 4.5 or 5. So I'll go 4.5, 4.5 stars.
4.5 stars. I can meet you with a 4.5 on that. I don't really have any excuse for not to be a 4.5. I just figured I took it down a pegs because I just wanted it to be. I just wanted some more context within the movie, but
you wanted more out of it.
But it did. I wanted a little more out of it.
The more that, but the more that you want, did it take away from the story that you got?
No, it didn't. No, I think if anything, if I got more, it would have definitely been more enhanced.
Yeah.
Also, just some like little tidbits that they threw in there as well. Just in like quick dialogue was like the president was on his 3rd term.
Yes.
And he also disbanded the FBI. So like obviously this figure, this presidential figure, was kind of unhinged. If you think of it that way, like just like taking over, like doing things that wasn't normally like societal, like out of the society norms, and like really going into like this all-out war that's happening in America. But yeah, no, I can meet with you with 4.5. I'm not mad with that rating at all. It was a really good movie, definitely up there. Another movie I'll probably be talking about later on as maybe some of the best of the year. I know that around this time we typically say that, and there's a whole bunch of movies that comes with that, and we're still in April, so we have plenty of year to go. But it's definitely one that when I'm thinking about my best movies of the year, this will be on the list. Will it make the top 10? Don't know yet. But
what do you think about? You think about Oscars? Maybe.
I don't think they would. I don't think they're looking at it, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I think it'll be too out of the realm. Like there's only a few movies that come out of like this time that people are still thinking about and talking about come Oscar time.
That's fair.
But
if I had to say anything, at least, I mean, and it probably won't happen, but sound design and production design, I think and even more so the sound design, I think was absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Sound design was very much fantastic. And to your point, I also love Kristen Dunst's performance. Probably the best she's done in years, to my opinion.
To me, ever. This is the best thing I've ever seen her in.
Yeah, she definitely played a cold person, and I think it worked really well for her. Like I was able to maybe not relate, but like I understood.
I could connect with her.
Character.
I was able to connect with her. Yeah.
But there you go. That's our spoiler review on Civil War. We had back-to-back winners here with Monkey Man last week and Civil War. And honestly, as a whole, we really haven't seen a bad movie come out of this like springtime.
No.
Where we got like these blockbusters that come out. You know, it kind of started with Dune, and now we're kind of coming down to the end of it while we get ready for the summer. I think Fall Guy is going to kick off the summer releases in May, but we got like this little in between where we're getting some of these big blockbusters that come out in the springtime. And so far, like I don't think we had any bad ones really in the mix of it all. So definitely between Monkey Man and this, we're living good in the theaters right now. Not gonna lie, of having like really good experiences in there.
I agree. I'm even looking forward to next week's movie.
Go ahead. Tell her love this.
Tell her
love listen. Nope. You got. Just go ahead.
Okay. Next week we are reviewing Abigail. It's a 2024 American monster horror film directed by Matt Bettinelli Alpin and Tyler Gillette, from a screenplay written by Stephen Shields and Gary Busick, based on a reimagining of the 1936 Universal Classic Monsters film Dracula's Daughter. Stars Alicia Weir, who plays the daughter of Count Dracula, Melissa Barrera, Dan Stevens, Catherine Newton, Will Catlett, Kevin Durant, Angus Cloud, and my boy Giancarlo Esposito. So I was like half excited, and hopefully we'll be able to get Stev on for this episode.
Yes,
I'm excited for it. This. Seems like a good monster movie. I'm feeling this movie. It's feeling like it's gonna be good.
Yeah, the directing duo known as Radio Silence, as collectively for some reason, but I'm not gonna question that. They are behind Ready or Not, the Scream 5 and 6, so they've definitely made a name for themselves in the horror genre. And this is actually the movie they left the Scream franchise for. So this is the reason why they're not directing Scream 7 and instead doing this. So, I mean, honestly, with the weight that Scream 7's going, now they could, if they really wanted to, they can go back. But they're not doing that. And, you know, we've talked about Scream 7 and their ups and downs with their project. But I am very curious to see the movie that took them out of the Scream franchise.
Agreed.
Because the Scream franchise was so good when under their direction, and I really enjoyed Ready or Not as well. So the fact that they left that project for this, I'm more curious on what they wanted, what excited them to tell this story and to lead the Scream franchise for. So yeah, and hopefully, like you said before, we have plans to have Estevan back on the show. Last time we did that, he last minute did not come in. Just calling him out right here, right now.
Yeah.
So if he does come back next week, we'll be very appreciative. But we're gonna give him so much shit for dropping out.
I can't wait to give him shit about it. It's just so fun. That's like one of my favorite things to do because he does it to me too.
He does it all the time. Yeah. And so for those who are wondering why he hasn't been back in a while, that's why, because he keeps canceling on us. But we love him regardless, so we look forward to having him back on the show. And it's been a while since we've actually done like a straight up horror movie on the show. So that's a little bit different for us because we don't typically go down this. But yeah, a lot to look forward to next week. And if you want more from us, you can always follow us on all of our social media channels. You can catch us on Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok at Box Office Bingers, our X and Letterbox page at Box Office Binger, and our Instagram and Threads page at Box Office_Bingers. You can see all of our lovely faces and the full episode on our YouTube channel at Box Office Bingers, where you can see all our lovely graphics, all of our smiling faces, and then you can also see the reels on our Instagram and TikTok pages, where we get little snippets of each and every episode, as well as the breaking news on all of the other ones, such as Threads, Instagram, and Facebook, and then our movie reviews are on our Letterboxd page. So all of it, there's so much stuff there that we continue to do each and every week. That when you're not listening to us, just have fun and talk about movies. Come back next week for more movie fun. You're not going to regret it. We really appreciate each and every one of you for taking the time to listen to us just just kind of ramble for 2 hours each and every week. We have so much fun doing it, and we appreciate you guys listening. So come back next week for more movie fun. You're not going to forget it. And for that, I've been your host, Matt Diaz.
Ernesto Santos. See ya.